In this video, I'll be walking you through the entire timeline of Darksiders in chronological order, covering everything from the creation of the universe itself to the apocalyptic events that unfold across the main series. We'll be examining all four mainline games, including Darksiders, Darksiders II, Darksiders III, and the prequel Darksiders Genesis, along with the essential backstory that sets up the entire cosmic conflict between Heaven, Hell, and the Charred Council. Specific events within the Darksiders Genesis comic series are not detailed as they largely overlap with the game's narrative, so we'll be focusing purely on what the games themselves establish. As always, throughout the video, there will be a timeline animation at the bottom of the screen, so you can easily follow along and understand exactly when each event takes place. Now, here's something that might surprise you. The entire Darksiders saga, including the creation of the universe and the Nephilim, predates the events of the first game by untold millennia, making the present-day conflict a mere blip in a vast cosmic history. But before we get to any of that, we need to explain the setting first. In the ancient past, before recorded time, before the first star ignited in the void, before even the concept of existence had meaning, there was the Creator. This primordial force, the origin of all things, brought forth the universe from nothingness, and with it established the fundamental principle that would govern all of reality: the balance. This was not merely a philosophical concept or a guideline for behavior. The balance was woven into the very fabric of creation itself, a cosmic law as immutable as gravity, as essential as light. It dictated that no single force could reign supreme, that power must be distributed, that for every action there must exist the potential for an equal and opposite reaction. Without the balance, the universe would collapse into either absolute tyranny or complete chaos, and all of creation would unravel into the void from which it came. The Creator, in establishing this cosmic order, divided reality into distinct realms, each serving a specific purpose in the grand design. First among these was Heaven, a realm of radiant light and perfect order, where divine architecture stretched into infinite golden horizons and crystalline spires reached toward an eternal sky. Heaven was conceived as a bastion of law, of righteousness, of unwavering dedication to the preservation of order throughout the cosmos. It was a place where perfection was not merely an aspiration, but the fundamental state of being, where every action served a greater purpose, where discipline and hierarchy formed the bedrock of existence. In stark contrast, the Creator also brought forth Hell, a realm of fire and shadow, of endless torment and primal chaos. Where Heaven embodied order, Hell represented destruction and entropy. It was a dimension of molten landscapes and twisted architectures, where rivers of lava carved through obsidian mountains and the very air seemed to burn with malevolent energy. Hell was not simply a place of punishment, though it would come to serve that function. It was a necessary counterweight to Heaven's order, a realm where the raw, destructive forces of the universe could exist without tearing apart the more delicate fabrics of creation. In the grand equation of the balance, Hell's chaos was as essential as Heaven's order. Between these two extremes, the Creator designated a third realm, one that would prove central to the unfolding drama of existence. This was Earth, a world of matter and mortality, of beauty and brutality intertwined. Unlike Heaven or Hell, Earth was not a realm of absolutes. It existed in a state of constant flux, where seasons changed, where life emerged and perished, where nothing remained permanent except change itself. The Creator set aside this realm for a specific purpose, for it would be the home of humanity, a race that did not yet exist but whose potential the Creator had already foreseen. Humanity would be different from the beings that populated Heaven and Hell. They would possess something unique, something dangerous and beautiful in equal measure: free will, the capacity to choose their own path, to define their own nature, to rise to greatness or fall to depravity by their own decisions. But the Creator understood that establishing these realms was not enough. The balance, while woven into the foundation of reality, required active maintenance. The forces of Heaven and Hell, by their very natures, would seek to expand their influence, to tip the scales in their favor. And humanity, when it finally emerged, would be vulnerable, caught between these cosmic powers. To prevent the balance from being destroyed, to ensure that no single faction could dominate the others and unravel the careful order of creation, the Creator established an institution of immense authority: the Charred Council. The Charred Council was unlike anything else in creation. It was not aligned with Heaven, Hell, or Earth. It existed outside the traditional hierarchy, answerable only to the balance itself. The council was composed of three ancient beings, entities whose origins were shrouded in mystery even to the oldest angels and demons. Some whispered that they were the first beings the Creator had made, forged from the primordial fires of creation itself. Others suggested they were aspects of the Creator, fragments of divine consciousness given form and purpose. Whatever their true nature, they were powerful beyond measure, and they were impartial. They cared nothing for the petty concerns of individual beings or even entire races. They served only the balance, and they would do whatever was necessary to preserve it. The Charred Council took their name from their appearance, for they seemed to be beings perpetually consumed by flame, their forms wreathed in fire that never quite consumed them. They sat in judgment in a realm beyond the normal flow of space and time, a place where the threads of reality could be observed and, when necessary, manipulated. Their voices, when they spoke, carried the weight of absolute authority. When the Charred Council issued a decree, it was not a suggestion or a request. It was law, binding upon all beings in all realms. Their primary directive, the singular purpose for which they had been created or chosen, was to prevent any single faction from achieving dominance. If heaven grew too powerful and threatened to impose its rigid order upon all of creation, the council would act. If hell's chaos threatened to consume everything in an inferno of destruction, the council would intervene. And when humanity finally emerged, if they proved too weak to survive or too dangerous to be allowed to flourish unchecked, the council would make the necessary decisions. To enforce their will, the council would eventually create servants of their own. But in these earliest days of creation, their authority alone was sufficient. The mere knowledge of their existence served as a deterrent to the most ambitious schemes of both heaven and hell. Heaven, in these primordial times, became populated by angels, beings of pure light and unwavering purpose. The angels were not born in the way mortal creatures would be. They were forged, created by the divine energies that suffuse their realm, each one brought into existence to serve a specific function in the celestial hierarchy. Angels were beings of absolute conviction, incapable of doubt or hesitation once they understood their purpose. They wielded weapons of divine power, swords and spears that could cut through the fabric of reality itself, and they possessed abilities that defied mortal comprehension. Some angels could move faster than thought, crossing vast distances in an instant. Others could heal wounds that should have been fatal, or smite enemies with bolts of holy fire that burned away not just flesh, but the very essence of a being. The angels organized themselves into strict hierarchies, with each rank serving those above and commanding those below. At the apex of this structure stood the most powerful angels, beings whose names would echo through eternity, whose decisions would shape the fate of entire worlds. These were the archangels and the members of the Hell Guard, elite warriors dedicated to combating the forces of hell. Angels believed absolutely in the righteousness of their cause. To them, order was not merely preferable to chaos, it was the only acceptable state of existence. They looked upon hell with disgust and horror, seeing in its chaos everything they opposed. And they would come to view Earth and humanity with a complex mixture of protectiveness and condescension, seeing mortals as children in need of guidance, incapable of choosing the correct path without angelic intervention. Hell, meanwhile, filled with its own inhabitants, demons, beings as diverse and chaotic as the realm they called home. Unlike the angels with their rigid hierarchies and clear purposes, demons were creatures of appetite and ambition. They were born from the primal energies of destruction and entropy, and they embodied these forces in countless forms. Some demons were little more than beasts, creatures of fang and claw that existed only to rend and tear. Others possessed cunning intellects and wielded dark magic that could corrupt the very souls of their victims. Demons fought constantly among themselves, with the strongest rising to positions of power and the weak being consumed or enslaved. This brutal hierarchy was not stable like heaven's order. It was in constant flux, with ambitious demons always seeking to overthrow their masters and claim greater power for themselves. The demons were ruled, inasmuch as such chaotic beings could be ruled, by powerful entities who had clawed their way to the top of hell's brutal hierarchy. These demon lords commanded vast armies and controlled territories within hell's infinite expanse. They looked upon heaven with hatred and envy, despising the angels' pretensions of superiority while secretly coveting their power and the stability of their realm. And they would come to see Earth as a prize to be claimed, a world ripe for conquest and corruption, filled with souls that could be harvested and twisted to serve hell's purposes. The stage was set for eternal conflict. Heaven and hell, order and chaos, light and darkness, stood opposed to one another across the vast expanse of creation. The balance held, but it was a tense equilibrium, maintained only by the watchful presence of the Charred Council and the understanding that open war between the two realms would result in mutual destruction. Then, humanity began to emerge on Earth. They were not created all at once like the angels, nor did they spawn from primal energies like the demons. Humanity evolved slowly, gradually developing consciousness and intelligence over vast stretches of time. They were fragile compared to angels and demons, lacking divine power or infernal magic. They could be killed by simple violence, by disease, by the mere passage of time. And yet, they possessed that quality the Creator had intended for them: free will. Each human could choose their own path, could decide between good and evil, order and chaos, creation and destruction. This made them unpredictable, dangerous in their own way, and infinitely valuable. For in the grand design of the balance, humanity represented the third point of the triangle, the fulcrum upon which the scales would ultimately tip. But before humanity could fully develop, before they could claim their destiny as the inheritors of Earth, something happened that would shake the foundations of creation and set in motion events that would reverberate through all of time. Despite the fundamental opposition between heaven and hell, despite the vast gulf that separated order from chaos, light from darkness, a forbidden union occurred. The circumstances of this union were lost to history, buried beneath layers of secrecy and shame. Perhaps it was an angel who fell from grace, seduced by the wild freedom of hell's chaos. Perhaps it was a demon who aspired to something greater than endless destruction, drawn to the light and purpose of heaven. Or perhaps it was something more complex, a genuine connection that transcended the artificial boundaries between the realms. Whatever the cause, the result was undeniable and catastrophic. From this union between angel and demon came offspring, and these children were unlike anything creation had seen before. They were called the Nephilim, and they represented a violation of the natural order so profound that both heaven and hell recoiled in horror at their existence. The Nephilim were a hybrid race, and in them flowed the blood of both their angelic and demonic progenitors. This gave them access to powers that should never have been combined. They possessed the discipline and martial skill of angels, the ability to wield divine weapons and channel holy energies. But they also inherited the raw destructive power of demons, the capacity for violence and conquest that defined hell's champions. More than the sum of their parts, the Nephilim were beings of staggering power, each one capable of feats that would require armies of angels or demons to accomplish. They were stronger, faster, more resilient than either of their parent races. They could heal from wounds that would kill angels, and they possessed a cunning and adaptability that demons lacked. But it was not merely their power that made the Nephilim so terrifying. It was their nature. The Nephilim inherited the absolute conviction of angels combined with the insatiable ambition of demons. They believed completely in their own superiority, and they possessed the drive to prove it through conquest. Where angels fought to preserve order and demons fought for the joy of destruction, the Nephilim fought to dominate, to rule, to remake creation in their own image. Both heaven and hell looked upon the Nephilim as abominations, as living violations of the natural order. The angels saw in them a corruption of divine purity, a stain upon creation that had to be cleansed. The demons, despite their own chaotic natures, recognized that the Nephilim represented something even they could not control, a force that threatened to upset the balance in ways that would ultimately destroy everything. For once, the two eternal enemies found themselves in agreement. The Nephilim could not be allowed to exist, but the Nephilim did not wait passively for judgment to fall upon them. They gathered together, this new race of hybrid warriors, and they made a decision that would define their legacy. If heaven and hell rejected them, if they were to be hunted and destroyed simply for existing, then they would carve out their own place in creation by force. The Nephilim went to war, not against heaven or hell specifically, but against everything. They began a campaign of conquest that spanned the cosmos, moving from world to world, realm to realm, bringing entire civilizations to their knees. The Nephilim were terrifyingly effective in their conquest. They moved as a unified force, our army of supremely powerful warriors led by the strongest among them. Worlds that had stood for eons fell before them in days. Races that had never known defeat were scattered and enslaved. The Nephilim showed no mercy and accepted no surrender that did not involve complete subjugation. They were building an empire, one that would span all of creation, one that would prove once and for all that they were the supreme beings in the universe. The Nephilim's expansion across the realms continued unchecked, their armies growing ever more numerous, their conquests ever more ambitious. What had begun as scattered raids evolved into systematic campaigns of subjugation. Entire dimensions fell under Nephilim rule, their native populations either enslaved or obliterated. The hybrid warriors, drunk on their own might, recognized no authority beyond their own strength. They carved kingdoms from the bones of worlds, establishing fortresses on conquered lands and demanding tribute from those they allowed to survive. The Nephilim saw themselves as the rightful inheritors of all creation, superior to both their angelic and demonic progenitors. This philosophy of supremacy drove them to ever greater acts of aggression, pushing deeper into territories that had remained neutral in the eternal conflict. The cosmic balance, that delicate equilibrium between light and darkness that had been carefully maintained since the dawn of existence, began to tilt dangerously under the weight of Nephilim ambition. The Charred Council, those ancient arbiters who had appointed themselves guardians of the balance, observed these developments with mounting alarm. From their obsidian chamber, suspended in the void between all realms, the three beings of living flame watched as the Nephilim threat metastasized. The Council had witnessed countless epochs, had seen civilizations rise and fall, had overseen the endless stalemate between heaven and hell. But the Nephilim represented something unprecedented in their long vigil. These were not merely another faction seeking advantage in the eternal conflict. The Nephilim were a third force, one that answered to no cosmic law, respected no ancient compact, and possessed the raw power to upset the fundamental order of reality itself. The Council's mandate, the very purpose for which they existed, was to preserve the balance at any cost. They had intervened in the affairs of angels and demons countless times, always working to ensure that neither side gained decisive advantage. But the Nephilim were different. They were not participants in the eternal conflict. They were a cancer, growing outside the established order, threatening to consume everything. The Charred Council convened in their chamber, their voices echoing across the void as they debated the Nephilim question. The first of the council argued that the hybrid race might yet be brought to heel, that diplomatic overtures or threats might convince them to cease their expansion. The second council member dismissed this notion as naive, pointing to the Nephilim's inherent nature. Born of the union between angels and demons, the Nephilim embody the worst aspects of both races. The self-righteousness of heaven combined with the cruelty of hell, the zealotry of angels merged with the ambition of demons. They would never willingly submit to external authority. The third member of the council spoke the truth that all three knew but had been reluctant to voice. The Nephilim could not be reasoned with, could not be contained, could not be allowed to continue. They had to be eradicated, completely and utterly, down to the last warrior. Only through the total extinction of the Nephilim race could the balance be restored and the cosmic order preserved. The decision made, the council faced a new problem. How does one destroy a race of beings who had proven themselves capable of defeating both angelic and demonic armies? The Nephilim were not merely strong. They were tactical, organized, and possessed abilities drawn from both sides of their heritage. They could wield the holy weapons of heaven and the dark sorceries of hell with equal facility. Their numbers, while not infinite, were sufficient to mount a credible defense if they perceived a threat to their existence. A direct assault by the Council's own forces would be costly and uncertain. The Council needed agents, warriors who could infiltrate Nephilim society, who understood Nephilim tactics and psychology, who possessed the strength to face their targets in direct combat. The Council needed Nephilim to destroy Nephilim. The search for suitable candidates began. The Council's gaze swept across the Nephilim armies, evaluating commanders and champions, assessing not merely their combat prowess, but their character. The Council needed warriors who were formidable enough to carry out the task, but also malleable enough to be bound to the Council service. They needed Nephilim who possessed some quality, some crack in their loyalty to their own kind, that could be exploited. The Council studied battle reports, observed skirmishes, and analyzed the political dynamics within Nephilim society. Gradually, 4 names emerged as the optimal choices. 4 Nephilim who stood above all others in terms of raw power and combat skill. 4 warriors who, for their own reasons, might be persuaded to turn against their brethren. The first was War, a Nephilim whose name had become synonymous with martial prowess. War was the embodiment of honorable combat, a warrior who lived by a strict code and valued strength above all else. He was a traditionalist among the Nephilim, one who believed that might should be tempered by principle. War had grown increasingly disturbed by the excesses of his fellow Nephilim, by their willingness to slaughter the weak and defenseless, by their descent into mere savagery. He still fought alongside his brethren, still led Nephilim armies to victory, but doubt had begun to gnaw at him. The Council saw in War a warrior who might be convinced that the Nephilim had strayed from some higher purpose, that they had become the very thing they should oppose. The second was Death, eldest of the Nephilim and perhaps the most powerful warrior the race had ever produced. Death was an enigma, even to his own kind. He fought with unmatched skill, wielding dual scythes that had harvested countless souls across a dozen realms. But Death was also a scholar of sorts, one who pondered the deeper questions of existence. He had walked among humans in their early days, had observed the fledgling Third Kingdom with interest. Death understood, perhaps better than any other Nephilim, the implications of his race's expansion. He saw the trajectory they were on, saw that their path led inevitably to a confrontation with forces they could not defeat. The Council recognized in Death a pragmatist, one who might choose survival over loyalty if presented with the right argument. The third was Fury, one of the few female Nephilim to achieve prominence in their male-dominated warrior culture. Fury had clawed her way to respect through sheer ferocity and cunning. She wielded a bladed whip with devastating effect, and her mastery of elemental magic made her a terror on the battlefield. But Fury was ambitious in ways that went beyond mere conquest. She craved recognition, yearned to prove herself superior not just to her enemies, but to her fellow Nephilim. She chafed under the collective nature of Nephilim society, where individual glory was subsumed into the achievements of the race as a whole. The Council saw in Fury a warrior whose ego could be leveraged, who might betray her kind if it meant ascending to a position of unique power and prestige. The fourth was Strife, a Nephilim who had embraced innovation in ways his tradition-bound brethren found distasteful. While most Nephilim relied on blades and brute force, Strife had developed a fascination with range combat and firearms. He had crafted a pair of pistols, Mercy and Redemption, weapons that channeled his power through alchemical ammunition. Strife was also unusual among Nephilim for his sense of humor, his ability to find levity even in the midst of slaughter. But beneath his irreverent exterior lay a sharp tactical mind and a pragmatic worldview. Strife had fewer illusions about Nephilim superiority than most of his kind. He understood that their expansion had made them enemies of literally everyone, and he possessed enough foresight to see that this was not a sustainable position. The Council recognized in Strife a realist who might be persuaded that changing sides was simply the smart play. The Charred Council reached out to these 4 warriors separately, summoning each to the Obsidian Chamber through means that could not be refused or ignored. One by one, the 4 Nephilim appeared before the Council, pulled from battlefields and fortresses, transported across dimensions to stand in the presence of the ancient arbiters. The Council made each of them an offer, though the specifics varied based on what would appeal to each individual warrior. To War, they spoke of honor and the corruption of the Nephilim cause. To Death, They presented cold logic and the mathematics of survival. To Fury, they dangled the prospect of ascending beyond her peers to become something unique and legendary. To Strife, they simply laid out the facts and let him draw his own conclusions about which side of the coming conflict offered better odds. But the offer was not merely philosophical or strategic. The Charred Council promised these four Nephilim something tangible, something that would elevate them beyond even their current formidable abilities. The Council offered them power, true power, drawn from the fundamental forces of reality itself. They would become more than Nephilim, more than mere warriors. They would become avatars of cosmic principles, living embodiments of the forces that shaped existence. They would become the four horsemen of the apocalypse, agents of the council tasked with maintaining the balance through whatever means necessary. In exchange for this power, they would swear binding oaths, would submit themselves to the council's authority, would become instruments of the council's will. They would be neither angel nor demon, neither heaven's champions nor hell's servants. They would stand apart from all factions, answerable only to the balance itself. The transformation that followed was as much spiritual as physical. The council channeled energies older than creation itself into the four Nephilim, fundamentally altering their nature. War was infused with the essence of conflict itself, becoming the living embodiment of honorable battle and righteous fury. Death was bound to the concept of mortality, becoming the inevitable end that awaits all things. Fury was merged with the primal forces of nature and emotion, becoming the incarnation of elemental wrath. Strife was tied to the chaos of change and the unpredictability of fate, becoming the agent of disruption and adaptation. The four Nephilim ceased to be merely members of their race and became something new, something unique in all of creation. They became the four horsemen, and with that transformation came both terrible power and terrible responsibility. The council bestowed upon each horseman a steed, mounts that were as much companions as transportation. These were no ordinary horses, but supernatural entities bound to their riders. War received Ruin, a massive warhorse wreathed in flames, whose hooves struck sparks from the very air. Death was given Despair, a pale mount that seemed to phase between the material world and the realm of the dead. Fury's steed was Rampage, a creature of pure elemental fury that could shift its form to match its rider's needs. Strife rode Mayhem, a mount as unpredictable and chaotic as its master, capable of impossible speed and maneuverability. These steeds were more than mere transportation. They were extensions of the horsemen themselves, bound by the same oaths, empowered by the same cosmic forces. With their transformation complete and their oath sworn, the four horsemen received their first mission from the Charred Council. The task was as straightforward as it was horrific. They were to return to their people, to the Nephilim armies and fortresses they had once called home, and they were to destroy everything. Every warrior, every stronghold, every trace of Nephilim civilization was to be erased from existence. The council was not interested in half measures or mercy. The Nephilim threat had to be eliminated completely, and the horsemen were the instruments chosen to carry out this genocide. The four warriors, now transformed into something beyond their former selves, accepted the mission. Whether they did so out of genuine conviction, cold pragmatism, ambition, or simple survival instinct varied among them. But all four agreed. They would betray their own kind. They would become the executioners of the Nephilim race. The betrayal began without warning. The horsemen returned to Nephilim territory, appearing at first to be simply returning from whatever mysterious absence had taken them. But they came bearing new weapons, riding strange steeds, emanating power that even other Nephilim could sense was different, wrong, other. The first attacks were devastating precisely because they were unexpected. Nephilim warriors who had fought alongside war, death, fury, and strife suddenly found themselves facing these former comrades in lethal combat. The horsemen struck at command centers, at gatherings of Nephilim leadership, at the strongest concentrations of their former brethren. They showed no hesitation, no mercy, no hint of the bonds that had once connected them to their victims. The Nephilim race, caught completely off guard by this internal threat, struggled to mount an effective defense. How do you fight enemies who know all your tactics, who trained alongside you, who understand your strengths and weaknesses intimately? The horsemen were not merely powerful. They were perfectly positioned to exploit every vulnerability in Nephilim military doctrine. They knew where the fortresses were located, knew the identities of key commanders, knew the routes that Nephilim armies used to move between realms, and they were empowered by the Charred Council, drawing on reserves of strength that went beyond anything the Nephilim could muster. Each horseman was worth 100 ordinary Nephilim warriors, and together they formed a strike force of unprecedented lethality. The campaign of extermination was systematic and relentless. The horsemen moved from realm to realm, hunting down Nephilim wherever they had established a presence. They destroyed fortresses, scattered armies, and executed leaders. The Nephilim, who had seemed so unstoppable in their expansion across the realms, found themselves on the defensive, then in retreat, then simply trying to survive. The war between the horsemen and their former brethren raged across dimensions, leaving devastation in its wake. Entire worlds that had been conquered by the Nephilim became battlegrounds, their landscapes scarred by combat between beings of immense power. Among the four siblings, it is Death who shoulders the heaviest burden in the Nephilim's final hours. while War's blade cuts through the battlefield with righteous fury, while Strife's guns thunder across the killing fields, and while Fury's whip cracks through the air with merciless precision, Death moves through the carnage like a shadow given form. He does not simply fight, he executes, he reaps. Where his scythe falls, entire bloodlines end. Where his gaze turns, hope itself withers and dies. The eldest of the horsemen has always understood what this moment truly means, that this is not merely battle, but erasure, not simply war, but extinction. And so he commits himself to the task with a thoroughness that will echo through eternity. He hunts down those who flee. He finds those who hide. He shows no mercy, because mercy would be a betrayal of the very balance they serve. By the time the last Nephilim falls, Death has personally ended more of his own kind than any other being in creation. The blood of his brothers and sisters, his cousins and kin, stains his hands so deeply that no amount of time will ever wash it clean. It is this act, this absolute commitment to the extinction of his own race, that earns him his title in its truest sense. He is not called Death because he serves it. He is called Death because he became it, because he looked at his own people and decided that their existence was less important than the survival of creation itself. The other races will remember this. They will whisper his name with a terror reserved for the inevitable end of all things. The campaign against the Nephilim is not a single battle, but a systematic purge that spans multiple worlds and dimensions. The horsemen do not simply defeat the Nephilim in one climactic confrontation. They hunt them. They track down every stronghold, every refuge, every hidden enclave where survivors might regroup. The Nephilim, for all their power, had spread across creation like a plague, establishing fortresses on conquered worlds, building monuments to their own supremacy. Each of these must be dismantled. Each population must be eliminated. The horsemen move from realm to realm, following the trails of fleeing Nephilim warriors, pursuing them into the deepest corners of existence. Some Nephilim beg for mercy. Some offer to serve the balance themselves, to change their ways, to become protectors rather than destroyers. The horsemen refuse every plea. The Charred Council's judgment is absolute. There can be no exceptions, no survivors who might one day rebuild what has been destroyed. The work is exhausting, soul-crushing, an endless procession of death that tests even the horsemen's resolve. But they persist, because they understand that any hesitation, any moment of weakness could unravel everything they are fighting to preserve. The balance demands totality. It demands that the Nephilim be erased so completely that they become nothing more than a cautionary tale, a myth told to frighten those who might consider following in their footsteps. When the last Nephilim finally falls, when the final scream fades into silence and the final body crumbles to dust, the horsemen stand amid the ruins of their own legacy. They are forever changed by what they have done. This is not a wound that heals. This is not a sin that can be forgiven or forgotten. They have committed kinslaying on a scale that defies comprehension. They have murdered their own brothers and sisters, their own flesh and blood, their own people. In many cultures across creation, kinslaying is considered the most heinous of all crimes, an act that stains not just the killer, but their entire lineage. For the horsemen, this stain is absolute. They can never return to what they were. They can never claim innocence or purity. They have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed, and they will carry the weight of this act for the rest of their existence. War, who values honor above all else, must reconcile his actions with his code. How does one maintain honor while slaughtering one's own kin? Strife, who masks his pain with humor and bravado, finds that some wounds cut too deep for jokes to heal. Fury, proud and fierce, must confront the reality that her strength was used to destroy her own family. And Death, the architect of the genocide, withdraws further into himself, building walls around his emotions that even his siblings cannot penetrate. They are bound together now not just by their service to the council, but by shared guilt, shared trauma, shared knowledge of what they are capable of when the balance demands it. They are the horsemen, and they are alone in creation, the last of the Nephilim, the executioners of their own race. Yet their service is not without reward, though whether these rewards are gifts or simply new chains remains a matter of perspective. The Charred Council, satisfied that the horsemen have proven their loyalty beyond any doubt, grants them symbols of their new authority. These are the 7 seals, mystical artifacts of immense power that represent the horsemen's role as enforcers of the balance. The seals are not merely decorative. They are cosmic locks, mechanisms that hold back the apocalypse itself. According to the ancient laws established at creation's dawn, the end of days cannot begin, the final war between heaven and hell cannot commence, and the kingdom of man cannot be tested until these 7 seals are broken. The horsemen are granted the right to bear these seals, to act as their guardians, and, when the time is right, to break them and unleash the apocalypse. This is both an honor and a burden. It means the horsemen are essential to creation's final chapter. It means they will be present at the end of all things, that their role in the cosmic drama is not yet complete. The seals themselves are intricate constructs, each one inscribed with runes of power that bind together the laws of reality. They glow with an inner light that reflects the balance itself, neither purely good nor purely evil, but something in between. To bear the seals is to carry the weight of creation's future. to know that one day, when the time appointed by the Creator arrives, the Horsemen will be called upon to open the way for the final reckoning. But there is another artifact born from the Nephilim's destruction, one far more dangerous than the seals themselves. The Nephilim were beings of immense power, each one a fusion of angel and demon, each one capable of reshaping reality through sheer force of will. When they die, that power does not simply vanish. It must go somewhere. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed, and the collective might of an entire race of demigods represents a reservoir of potential that could reshape creation itself if left unchecked. The Charred Council understands this danger. They cannot allow the Nephilim's power to dissipate into the cosmos, where it might be gathered by opportunistic demons or ambitious angels. They cannot risk that power being used to create a new generation of Nephilim or to fuel some other threat to the balance, and so they command Death, the one who ended more Nephilim lives than any other, to gather their souls and seal them away. This is not a task for the squeamish. Death must collect the essence of every fallen Nephilim, must draw together the scattered fragments of their beings, must compress the screaming, raging souls of his murdered kin into a single vessel. The process is agonizing, both for Death and for the souls themselves. The Nephilim do not go quietly into their prison. They rage, they curse, they swear vengeance against the brother who betrayed them. Death endures their hatred because he must, because there is no one else who can bear this burden, because he has already stained his hands with their blood, and this final indignity is simply one more weight to add to his collection. The vessel chosen for this terrible purpose is an ancient artifact, one that predates even the Nephilim themselves. It is called the Amulet of Armageddon, a name that speaks to its ultimate purpose and its catastrophic potential. The amulet is a thing of dark beauty, forged from materials that exist at the intersection of matter and spirit, crafted with techniques long forgotten even by the angels who first walked creation. Its surface is inscribed with containment runes, binding spells that can hold even the most powerful souls in check. Into this amulet, Death pours the collected essence of the Nephilim race. Thousands upon thousands of souls, each one a being of godlike power, each one screaming for release, are compressed and sealed within the amulet's crystalline heart. The process takes time, requires focus and will that would break lesser beings, demands that Death confront the full weight of what he has done. Every soul he seals is a face he remembers, a name he once knew, a warrior he once fought beside. Every soul is an accusation, a reminder of his betrayal. But Death does not falter. He completes the sealing, binding the Nephilim's power so tightly that nothing short of the amulet's destruction could release them. When the work is finally done, the amulet pulses with barely contained energy, a heartbeat of rage and power that makes reality itself shudder in its presence. The Amulet of Armageddon is now one of the most dangerous objects in all of creation. It contains the power of an entire race of demigods, the combined might of beings who once threatened to tear down heaven and hell alike. In the wrong hands, it could be used to fuel apocalyptic rituals, to create weapons of unimaginable destruction, to reshape the very fabric of reality according to the wielder's will. It could be used to resurrect the Nephilim themselves, to give them new forms and new life, to undo everything the Horsemen fought to accomplish. The Charred Council understands this danger all too well. They debate among themselves what should be done with the amulet. Some argue it should be destroyed, shattered, and scattered across dimensions where its fragments can never be reassembled. Others point out that destroying the amulet might release the souls within, creating an even worse catastrophe. Still others suggest it should be locked away in one of creation's deepest vaults, hidden where no one will ever find it. But ultimately, the council makes a different choice. They entrust the amulet to Death himself, charging him with its safekeeping. This is both punishment and pragmatism. Death is the one who filled the amulet with souls. He is the one who understands its power and its danger better than anyone. He is also the one least likely to be corrupted by it, because he has already paid the price of Kinslaying and knows exactly what the amulet represents. For Death, this is one more burden to bear, one more reminder of his sins, one more weight to carry through eternity. He takes the amulet without complaint, without argument, and hides it away where even his siblings cannot find it, in a place known only to him, where it will remain until such time as it is needed, or until the end of all things, whichever comes first. The Horsemen's service to the Charred Council is not a temporary arrangement. It is not a contract that expires after a set term or a duty that can be fulfilled and set aside. The Horsemen are bound to serve the Council until the end of all things, until creation itself unravels and the final curtain falls on the cosmic drama. This binding is both mystical and practical. The Horsemen have proven themselves willing to do whatever the balance requires, even to the point of genocide against their own kind. They are the perfect enforcers, beings of immense power who have demonstrated absolute loyalty. But they are also dangerous, unpredictable, capable of reshaping worlds if left to their own devices. The Council cannot simply release them into creation and hope they behave. They must be controlled, directed, kept on a leash even as they are given authority to act. And so the Horsemen become the Council's hands in the physical world. They're agents in matters that require direct intervention. When the balance is threatened, when heaven or hell oversteps their bounds, when some new threat emerges that could destabilize creation, the Horsemen are dispatched to correct the problem. They are judge, jury, and executioner all in one, empowered to make decisions in the council's name and to enforce those decisions with whatever force is necessary. But this power comes with strict limitations. The horsemen are forbidden from interfering in the affairs of heaven, hell, or humanity unless specifically sanctioned by the Charred Council. They cannot simply decide that one side is gaining too much power and act to counter it. They cannot pursue personal vendettas or settle old scores. They cannot involve themselves in the politics and power struggles that constantly roil through the higher and lower realms. They must wait for the council's command, must act only when given explicit permission, must restrain their considerable power until it is needed. This restriction chafes, particularly for warriors as proud and capable as the horsemen. They see threats to the balance that the council ignores. They witness injustices that cry out for correction, but they are bound by their oath, by the very laws they fought to preserve. To act without sanction would be to become what the Nephilim were, to place their own judgment above the cosmic order, to risk upsetting the very balance they serve. And so they wait. They watch. They endure the frustration of inaction even as their instincts scream for intervention. It is another form of punishment, another reminder that they are servants, not masters, that their power is leashed and controlled. To facilitate their work across creation's vast expanse, the horsemen are granted access to a network of mystical passages known as the Serpent Holes. These are not natural phenomena, but constructed pathways, tunnels through reality itself that allow near-instantaneous travel between distant locations. The Serpent Holes are maintained by an ancient entity called the Serpent, a being of ambiguous nature and uncertain loyalty who serves as gatekeeper and guide. The Serpent Holes become the horsemen's stronghold, their base of operations, the closest thing they have to a home in a creation that no longer welcomes them. Through these passages, they can travel from heaven to hell, from the kingdom of man to the furthest reaches of the abyss, appearing wherever the balance requires their presence. The Serpent Holes are also a sanctuary, a place between places where the horsemen can rest, regroup, and prepare for their next mission. They are neutral territory, belonging to neither heaven nor hell, touched by neither light nor darkness. Here, the horsemen are safe from the political machinations of angels and demons. Here, they can speak freely without fear of being overheard. Here, they can maintain their weapons, tend their wounds, and contemplate the weight of their existence. With the Nephilim eradicated and the horsemen bound to service, the balance is temporarily restored. The immediate threat has been eliminated. Heaven and hell return to their eternal conflict, but now they do so within the boundaries established at creation's dawn, without the Nephilim's interference tipping the scales. The kingdom of man, still young and vulnerable, is given the space it needs to grow and develop without being crushed between the warring factions. The Charred Council resumes its vigil, watching for new threats, new imbalances, new challenges to the cosmic order. Creation breathes easier, though those who understand what has transpired know that this peace is fragile, that the balance is always under threat, that eternal vigilance is the price of existence itself. The Nephilim's destruction has bought time, but it has not solved the fundamental problem. Heaven and hell still hate each other. Angels and demons still scheme and plot. The potential for catastrophe still lurks in every shadow. But, for now, for this moment, the scales are level. The balance holds, and the horsemen stand ready to defend it, no matter what the cost. The horsemen themselves become legendary figures, their names spoken with a mixture of fear and respect throughout all of creation. In heaven, angels tell stories of the four warriors who defied their own kind to preserve the balance, though whether these stories are admiring or cautionary depends on the teller. In hell, demons whisper of the horsemen's power, of their ability to cut through infernal legions like wheat before the scythe, and they plot ways to avoid drawing the horsemen's attention. Among the few humans who know of such things, the horsemen are mythical beings, avatars of cosmic justice, forces of nature given form and purpose. But it is the memory of what the horsemen did to their own kind that truly cements their reputation. They killed the Nephilim. They committed genocide against their own race. They proved that nothing, not blood, not kinship, not shared history, matters more than the balance. This makes them terrifying. It makes them unpredictable. It makes them the ultimate enforcers, beings who have already crossed the line that most would never dare approach. If they could kill their own brothers and sisters, what would they not do to preserve the balance? The answer, creation learns, is nothing. There is nothing the horsemen will not do, no sacrifice they will not make, no line they will not cross if the balance demands it. And so the memory of the Nephilim's destruction serves as a stark warning to all who might consider upsetting the cosmic order. Challenge the balance, and the horsemen will come. Threaten creation's stability, and you will face the same fate as the Nephilim. It is a warning written in blood, carved into the very foundations of reality, and it will echo through the ages until the end of all things. Millennia before the first seal would break and the apocalypse would be prematurely triggered on Earth, the cosmos itself was taking shape in ways that would define the eternal struggle between order and chaos. In the beginning, long before humanity drew its first breath or the horsemen rode forth on their terrible steeds, the universe came into being. Not as a single world or dimension, but as an infinite tapestry of realities, each one woven into the fabric of existence itself. Countless worlds materialized across the void, some bathed in eternal light, others shrouded in perpetual darkness. Dimensions folded upon dimensions, creating layers of reality that existed simultaneously yet remained separate, each one governed by its own laws and populated by its own inhabitants. This was not a gentle creation, but a violent birth, an explosion of possibility that sent ripples through the very concept of space and time. Within this newborn cosmos, a fundamental principle emerged, one that would become the cornerstone of all existence: the balance. This was not merely a philosophical concept or a moral guideline, but a cosmic law as immutable as gravity itself. The balance dictated that for every force of creation, there must exist an equal force of destruction. For every act of good, an act of evil. For every soul saved, a soul damned. It was the equilibrium that prevented the universe from tearing itself apart or collapsing into stagnation. Without the balance, reality itself would cease to function. Light without darkness would burn everything to ash. Darkness without light would smother all potential. The balance was the fulcrum upon which all of creation rested, and its maintenance would become the driving force behind countless wars, betrayals, and sacrifices in the ages to come. From the primordial energies of this new universe, two great powers coalesced, each representing an extreme of existence. Heaven emerged first, a realm of blinding radiance and absolute order, populated by angels whose very essence was woven from light and righteousness. The White City, heaven's capital, rose as a monument to perfection, its ivory spires reaching toward infinity, its halls filled with warrior angels who viewed themselves as the rightful inheritors of creation. These were the Hellguard, the soldiers of paradise, beings of immense power who believed their purpose was to spread the light of heaven across all worlds. They saw themselves not as conquerors but as liberators, bringing order to chaos and salvation to the lost. Their leader, the Archangel Abaddon, would one day command legions numbering in the millions, each angel sworn to defend heaven's interests and expand its influence across the cosmos. In opposition to heaven's light, hell manifested as a realm of fire, torment, and primal chaos. Where heaven sought order, hell embraced entropy. Where angels were born from light, demons crawled forth from the burning pits of the abyss, creatures of rage and hunger whose only purpose was to consume, corrupt, and destroy. Hell was not a single unified realm, but a collection of burning kingdoms, each ruled by a demon lord of terrible power. These were beings like Samael, the demon prince who would later be imprisoned in the scalding gallows, or Belial, whose very presence could melt stone and boil blood. The demons viewed the universe as theirs to devour, seeing all their life as either prey or obstacles to be obliterated. Their armies were numberless, spawning endlessly from the fires of their realm, and they desired nothing less than the total corruption of all creation, heaven and hell, light and darkness, order and chaos. These two forces immediately recognized each other as enemies, and the eternal war began. Not a war with a beginning or an end, but a perpetual conflict that raged across dimensions, with countless worlds serving as battlegrounds. Entire civilizations rose and fell as collateral damage in this cosmic struggle. Planets were scorched to cinders or frozen in eternal ice as angels and demons clashed for supremacy. Neither side could gain a permanent advantage because they were, by their very nature, equal and opposite forces. Every victory for heaven was eventually countered by a triumph for hell. Every demon slain was matched by an angel's fall. The war was eternal because the balance demanded it be so. Yet, neither heaven nor hell truly understood this fundamental truth. They fought not to maintain equilibrium, but to achieve total domination, blind to the fact that such domination would destroy the very fabric of reality. It was in response to this endless conflict that the Charred Council came into being. The exact origins of the council remain shrouded in mystery even to the most ancient beings in the universe. Some whispered that they were created by the universe itself, given form and purpose to protect the balance. Others claimed they were remnants of an even older reality, survivors from before the current cosmos took shape. What is known is that the Charred Council consisted of three entities, beings of immense power whose true forms were hidden behind flames and shadow. They sat upon thrones of blackened stone in a chamber that existed outside conventional reality, their voices speaking as one, their judgment absolute. The council's sole purpose was to enforce the balance, to ensure that neither heaven nor hell could tip the scales so far that reality itself would collapse. To carry out their will, the council established their seat of power in a place called the Void. This was not a dimension in the traditional sense, but rather the absence of dimension, a space that existed between all other spaces, outside the flow of time itself. In the Void, past, present, and future held no meaning. Cause and effect became fluid concepts. The council's chamber stood at the center of this non-place, accessible only through portals that the council themselves controlled. From this vantage point outside of time and space, the council could observe all of creation simultaneously, watching for any threat to the balance. They could see the rise and fall of civilizations in an instant, witness the birth and death of stars, and monitor the endless war between heaven and hell. The Void became the ultimate neutral ground, a place where even the mightiest angels and demons could be summoned to face judgment. But the eternal war between heaven and hell was not the only threat to the balance. From the union of these two opposing forces, something unexpected emerged. Angels and demons, despite their mutual hatred, were not so different at their core. Both were beings of immense power and passion. Both were driven by absolute conviction in their cause. And in rare, terrible instances, that passion transcended the boundaries of their eternal conflict. When angel and demon came together in unholy union, their offspring were neither angel nor demon, but something entirely new: the Nephilim. These were beings of unprecedented power, combining the order and discipline of heaven with the raw, chaotic strength of hell. They were giants among races, warriors without equal, and they carried within them the potential to upset the balance in ways that neither heaven nor hell alone ever could. The first Nephilim were few in number, outcasts from both heaven and hell, hunted by their parents' people and forced to survive in the spaces between worlds. But they were survivors, and more than that, they were conquerors. Under the leadership of Absalom, the greatest and most terrible of their kind, the Nephilim began to multiply. Absalom was a being of singular vision and terrifying charisma. He looked upon the eternal war and saw only waste. He observed heaven and hell locked in their endless stalemate and concluded that both kingdoms were corrupt, both unworthy of the power they wielded. In his mind, the Nephilim represented a third path, a race that could transcend the limitations of their angelic and demonic heritage to become something greater. He gathered the Nephilim to him, gave them purpose, and forged them into an army unlike any the universe had ever seen. The Nephilim did not merely fight, they annihilated. Where angels sought to bring order and demons sought to spread chaos, the Nephilim sought only conquest and the expansion of their own power. They descended upon worlds like a plague, their numbers growing with each victory. Some Nephilim were born from the unions of angels and demons, but others were created through darker means, through rituals and sorcery that Absalom had discovered in his quest for power. The Nephilim developed their own culture, their own code, built around strength and the survival of the most powerful. They wielded weapons forged from both holy and demonic materials, creating armaments that could harm both angel and demon with equal effectiveness. Their armor was inscribed with runes that drew power from both light and darkness, making them nearly invincible in battle. World after world fell to the Nephilim horde. They swept across dimensions like wildfire, leaving nothing but ash and ruin in their wake. Unlike the Eternal War, which ebbed and flowed with neither side gaining permanent ground, the Nephilim campaign was one of total domination. They did not seek to convert or corrupt, they simply destroyed everything that stood before them and claimed the ruins as their own. Entire species were driven to extinction. Civilizations that had stood for millions of years were reduced to dust in a matter of weeks. The Nephilim took no prisoners, showed no mercy, and offered no quarter. In their eyes, they were the righteous inheritors of creation, and all others were merely obstacles to be removed. The Charred Council watched this growing threat with increasing alarm. The Nephilim were not simply another faction in the Eternal War. They were a cancer that threatened to consume all of creation. Their very existence was an affront to the balance. They were born from the union of opposites, yes, but instead of embodying equilibrium, they represented the worst aspects of both heaven and hell combined. They had the angels' conviction without their mercy, the demons' hunger without their chaotic nature. They were order and chaos twisted together into something that served only itself. If left unchecked, the Nephilim would not merely tip the balance, they would shatter it entirely, leaving nothing but an empty universe ruled by Absalom and his kin. The council convened in their chamber within the void, their three voices merging into one as they pronounced judgment. The Nephilim were an abomination. They had violated the fundamental laws of creation simply by existing, and their campaign of conquest had proven that they could not be allowed to continue. The sentence was absolute and without appeal. The entire Nephilim race was to be exterminated. Every last one of them, from the mightiest warrior to the weakest child, was to be hunted down and destroyed. No mercy would be shown. No exceptions would be made. The Nephilim had threatened the balance, and the balance demanded their extinction. But the council faced a problem. The Nephilim were too powerful, too numerous, and too skilled in battle for the council to destroy them directly. The council's power was vast, but it was not unlimited, and direct intervention on such a massive scale would itself threaten the balance. They needed agents, warriors who could move through the universe and carry out the council's will without the council itself having to act. They needed beings who understood the Nephilim, who knew their tactics and their weaknesses, who could match them in battle and surpass them in skill. And so the council turned to the Nephilim themselves, to 4 warriors who stood apart from their brethren, 4 who had already begun to question Absalom's vision of endless conquest. These 4 Nephilim were among the most powerful of their race. War, the eldest and strongest, a warrior whose skill with a blade was unmatched even among his superhuman kin. Death, the most feared, an assassin whose very name caused other Nephilim to whisper in dread. Fury, the most cunning, a sorceress whose mastery of magic was rivaled only by her ambition. And Strife, the most unpredictable, a warrior who had already begun to experiment with weapons that no Nephilim had wielded before. The council summoned these four to the void, bringing them before the burning thrones and presenting them with a choice that would echo through eternity. Serve the council and live, or refuse and die with the rest of their kind. Become the enforcers of the balance, the weapons through which the council's will would be enacted, or be destroyed alongside every other Nephilim in existence. The four would be transformed, bound by powerful magic that would make them the council's servants, but in exchange, they would be granted power beyond even what they currently possessed. They would become the four horsemen of the apocalypse, riders who would herald the end of ages and enforce the balance across all of creation. But first, they would have to prove their loyalty by committing the ultimate betrayal. They would have to slaughter their own kind, hunt down and destroy every Nephilim in the universe, and they would have to do it without hesitation or mercy. The horsemen, now bound by the council's will, would not stand idle without purpose. To enforce their new roles as guardians of the balance, each of the four was granted weapons of immense power, artifacts forged specifically to complement their unique natures and the tasks they would undertake. War received Chaositor, a colossal blade capable of cleaving through the toughest armor and the most resilient demonic hide. The sword was more than a weapon. It was an extension of War's own essence, a manifestation of his role as the embodiment of conflict itself. The blade could transform, adapting to different combat situations, and it hungered for battle as much as its wielder did. Death, the eldest and most enigmatic of the four, was given Harvester, a pair of scythes that could reap souls as easily as they cut through flesh. These weapons were tied directly to Death's dominion over mortality, allowing him to not only destroy his enemies, but to manipulate the very essence of life and death. The scythes could separate soul from body, trap spirits, and even resurrect fallen creatures under Death's command, making him perhaps the most feared of all the horsemen. Fury, the only sister among the four, received the Scorn, a living whip forged from the essence of a primordial serpent. The weapon was as temperamental and fierce as Fury herself, capable of lashing out with devastating force or coiling around enemies to crush them. The Scorn could channel Fury's elemental powers, transforming into different forms depending on which hollow or elemental enhancement she channeled through it. This adaptability made Fury unpredictable in combat, able to shift tactics and elements mid-battle to exploit any weakness. Strife, the youngest and most impulsive of the horsemen, was given Mercy and Redemption, twin pistols that defied the typical medieval aesthetic of the other weapons. These guns were forged in the same cosmic fires as the other artifacts, imbued with angelic and demonic energies that allowed them to fire projectiles capable of destroying beings from either realm. The pistols represented Strife's unique approach to conflict, favoring speed and precision over brute force, and his tendency to question authority even as he served it. Beyond their weapons, each horseman was also granted their mount, creatures of power that would carry them across the cosmos in service of the balance. War rode upon Ruin, a massive warhorse wreathed in flames whose hooves could crack the earth and whose speed could outpace even the swiftest demons. Death's mount was Despair, a pale horse that seemed to exist partially outside normal reality, able to traverse the veil between life and death with ease. Fury commanded Rampage, a creature that could shift forms, sometimes appearing as a horse, other times as a more monstrous entity, reflecting Fury's own volatile nature. Strife rode Mayhem, a mount as swift and unpredictable as its rider, capable of incredible bursts of speed and agility. These mounts were not mere animals, but sentient beings bound to their riders, extensions of the horsemen's power and will. They could be summoned from across vast distances, appearing when needed and vanishing when their service was complete. The bond between horseman and mount was sacred, forged in the same fires that had transformed the Nephilim into their new roles. With their weapons and mounts secured, the horsemen were given their mandate. They would serve as the council's enforcers throughout creation, traveling to wherever the balance was threatened. This could mean intervening in conflicts between heaven and hell in neutral territories, hunting down rogue entities that threatened the cosmic order, or eliminating threats that neither heaven nor hell wanted to acknowledge. The horsemen became legends across the realms, feared and respected in equal measure. Angels whispered of them as necessary evils, demons cursed their names, and the few beings who existed outside the great conflict learned to stay clear of their path. The four operated both together and independently, depending on the nature of the threat. Some missions required the combined might of all four, while others could be handled by a single horseman. This flexibility made them incredibly effective, able to respond to threats of any scale. However, one realm remained strictly off limits. Earth, the Third Kingdom, was forbidden territory for the horsemen until the appointed time. The Council's decree was absolute on this matter. No matter how curious they might be about humanity, no matter what threats might emerge on Earth, the horsemen were not to interfere until the Seven Seals were broken. This restriction chafed against their nature, particularly for those like Fury and Strife who questioned the wisdom of leaving an entire realm unprotected. But the Council's word was law, and the binding that held the horsemen to their service ensured compliance. The punishment for breaking this taboo was left unspoken, but all four understood that defying the Council on this matter would result in consequences more severe than any they had faced before. The Earth was to develop naturally, without interference from any of the great powers, and the horsemen were to honor that decree no matter the cost. To ensure that the Council's will was carried out and that the Horsemen remained faithful to their charge, the Council established the Watchers. These entities were created to serve as the Council's eyes and ears throughout creation, monitoring events across all realms and reporting back any disturbances in the balance. The Watchers were not warriors themselves, but they possessed considerable power and authority, acting as intermediaries between the Council and those who served it. They were crafted from the same cosmic energies that the Council commanded, given form and purpose but bound absolutely to the Council's will. Unlike the Horsemen, who retained some measure of independence and free will despite their binding, the Watchers were extensions of the Council itself, incapable of acting against their creator's interests. They served as chroniclers as well as enforcers, recording the great events of creation and ensuring that the Council's decrees were followed to the letter. Among these Watchers, one specific entity was assigned a unique and crucial role. This Watcher, often referred to simply as the Watcher, was tasked with observing and guiding the four Horsemen directly. The Watcher would accompany the Horsemen on their missions, serving as the Council's representative and ensuring that the four remained true to their purpose. This was not a position of trust, but of necessity. The Council, despite binding the Horsemen to their service, understood that the Nephilim nature was not easily suppressed. The Horsemen were warriors first, and their instincts might lead them astray if left completely unsupervised. The Watcher served as both guide and guard, offering counsel when needed, but also prepared to report any deviation from the Council's commands. The relationship between the Watcher and the Horsemen was complex, marked by mutual respect in some cases and barely concealed hostility in others. War, with his rigid sense of duty, generally accepted the Watcher's presence as part of his service. Death, however, viewed the Watcher with suspicion and resentment, seeing the entity as a jailer rather than an ally. Fury's relationship with the Watcher would prove particularly volatile, her pride constantly clashing with the Watcher's authority. Strife, true to his nature, treated the whole arrangement with sardonic humor, though beneath the jokes lay a deep frustration with being constantly monitored. As the Horsemen took up their duties and the Watchers began their eternal vigil, the Charred Council itself maintained a strict watch over Earth. The Council's chambers, existing outside normal space and time, became the center of a vast network of observation and intelligence. From their throne, the three entities that comprised the Council could perceive events across all realms simultaneously. Their attention focused particularly on the Third Kingdom. Every development in humanity's evolution was noted, every potential threat assessed. The Council did not interfere directly, that was what the Horsemen were for, but they watched with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Earth represented something unprecedented in creation, a realm that belonged to neither heaven nor hell, populated by beings who were neither angel nor demon. The Council had staked everything on the belief that humanity could become a force for balance, a third power that would prevent either heaven or hell from achieving absolute dominion. But this was a gamble, and the Council knew it. If humanity failed to develop as hoped, if they proved too weak or too corruptible, then the entire cosmic order might collapse into eternal war. The truce that the Council had brokered was fragile, held together more by mutual fear than genuine peace. Heaven and hell both honored the letter of the agreement, neither realm openly attacking Earth or attempting to claim it before the appointed time. But both sides understood that the final war was inevitable, and neither intended to enter that conflict unprepared. In heaven, the archangels began to establish networks of agents and observers, beings who could monitor Earth from a distance without technically violating the Council's decree. These agents were carefully chosen, angels who could operate subtly, gathering information about humanity's development and identifying potential allies for when the seals were finally broken. The White City, heaven's greatest fortress and the seat of angelic power, became a hive of strategic planning. The archangels convened in secret councils debating how best to ensure that when humanity was finally ready, they would side with heaven rather than hell. Some angels argued for a policy of benevolent observation, believing that humanity would naturally gravitate toward the light if left to develop freely. Others, more cynical, suggested that heaven should find ways to subtly influence human development, guiding them toward righteousness through carefully orchestrated miracles or divine inspiration that wouldn't technically violate the truce. Hell, meanwhile, pursued its own strategies with characteristic cunning and brutality. The demon lords understood that they could not match heaven's appeal to humanity's better nature, so they focused instead on exploiting humanity's weaknesses. Demonic agents were dispatched to the edges of Earth's reality, testing the boundaries of what the Council would tolerate. These demons worked to corrupt human souls through temptation, offering power, pleasure, or knowledge in exchange for allegiance. The goal was not to claim Earth outright, that would violate the truce, but to ensure that when the final war came, humanity would be so compromised and divided that they would either side with hell or be too weak to matter. The demon lords also prepared for war in more direct ways, forging new weapons, breeding new horrors, and training vast armies in the depths of hell. They knew that when the seals broke, the conflict would be total, and they intended to overwhelm heaven through sheer force and numbers. The demon prince Samael, one of the most powerful and ambitious of Hell's lords, became particularly focused on finding ways to circumvent the Council's restrictions, seeking loopholes and technicalities that might allow Hell to gain an advantage before the final war officially began. As these preparations unfolded in heaven and hell, Earth itself remained largely unaware of its cosmic significance. Humanity developed slowly, evolving from primitive tribes into more complex civilizations. They built cities, developed languages, created art and philosophy, and began to contemplate their place in the universe. Some humans, more sensitive to the supernatural than others, caught glimpses of the greater reality that surrounded them. These individuals became shamans, priests, and mystics, interpreting their visions as best they could and creating mythologies to explain the forces they sensed but could not fully comprehend. Angels and demons appeared in these myths, often in distorted forms, as humanity tried to make sense of the cosmic powers that occasionally brushed against their realm. But for the most part, humanity remained ignorant of the great game being played around them, unaware that their entire existence was part of a grand experiment to preserve the balance of creation. Millennia passed in the state of tense anticipation. The Horsemen carried out their duties across the cosmos, becoming legends in every realm except the one they were forbidden to enter. The Council watched and waited, measuring humanity's progress against criteria known only to themselves. Heaven and Hell prepared for the inevitable conflict, each side convinced that when the final war came, they would emerge victorious. And through it all, the Seven Seals remained unbroken, hanging in the Council's chamber like a promise and a threat, waiting for the moment when humanity would finally be ready to face its destiny, and the cosmos would be plunged into the final war that would determine the fate of all creation. Having explored the tragic downfall of the Third Kingdom and the forging of the Seven Seals, our journey through the convoluted tapestry of the Darksiders universe now takes us back, far back, to a period centuries before the events of Darksiders I. We delve into the era defined by Darksiders Genesis, a time when the cosmic scales of power, known as the balance, were still precariously maintained, albeit under increasing strain. At this juncture, the universe, a vast and often chaotic expanse, existed in a state of delicate equilibrium. This balance, a cosmic principle of order and harmony, was not self-sustaining. It required constant vigilance and, at times, forceful intervention. The primary custodians of this universal order were the enigmatic and all-powerful Charred Council. These ancient, monolithic beings, whose origins are shrouded in mystery even to the most learned scholars of the cosmos, served as arbiters, judges, and enforcers of the balance. Their authority was absolute, their judgment final, and their power immense, allowing them to shape the destinies of entire civilizations and realms. They were the ultimate authority, the unyielding bedrock upon which the cosmic order rested. To execute their will and to safeguard the balance against threats both internal and external, the Charred Council employed a formidable quartet of enforcers, the four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. These weren't just powerful warriors, they were ancient Nephilim, a race born from the forbidden union of angels and demons. This hybrid lineage granted them immense strength, unparalleled combat prowess, and a unique perspective on the eternal conflict between heaven and hell. Each horseman embodied a distinct aspect of destruction and judgment, making them the perfect instruments for the Council's often brutal work. War, the embodiment of conflict and righteous fury; death, the harbinger of endings and the master of souls; fury, the tempest of wrath and untamed power; and strife, the cunning marksman and master of discord. Together, they were an unstoppable force, feared and respected across all creation, their names whispered in awe and terror by angels, demons, and mortals alike. Their loyalty to the Council was unwavering, forged through centuries of service and a shared understanding of the dire consequences should the balance ever truly collapse. They were the Council's fists, striking down any who dared to disrupt the cosmic order. Their methods, often ruthless but always, in their eyes, necessary. However, even the most robust systems can be undermined from within, or rather, from the shadowy fringes of existence. At this time, a malevolent intelligence began to stir, a force of pure ambition and cunning that sought to dismantle the established order. This was Lucifer, the Prince of Darkness, a figure of immense power and insidious charisma, who occupied a position of profound influence within the demonic hierarchy. Lucifer, ever the schemer, harbored a deep-seated contempt for the balance and the strictures imposed by the Charred Council. He saw the cosmic order not as a necessary framework for peace, but as a cage, limiting the true potential of chaos and the unfettered will of demonkind. His ambition was not merely to conquer a realm or defeat an enemy. It was to shatter the very foundations of reality, to usher in an age of unbridled demonic supremacy, where his will would be law. To achieve this grand, destructive vision, Lucifer embarked on a subtle yet profoundly dangerous campaign. He began to distribute fragments of his own immense power, referred to as cores, to various demon lords scattered across the vast tapestry of creation. These cores were not mere trinkets, they were potent conduits of dark energy, capable of amplifying a demon's inherent abilities to unprecedented levels, granting them new, terrifying powers and an almost insatiable hunger for destruction. Lucifer's strategy was brilliant in its simplicity and devastating in its potential impact. By empowering these lesser, yet still formidable demon lords, he was effectively sowing chaos and discord throughout the universe, creating pockets of immense demonic power that would inevitably clash with the forces of order. Each core was a seed of corruption, designed to sprout into a full-blown insurgency, weakening the balance from within and preparing the ground for his ultimate ascendance. He was not merely giving power, he was creating an army of empowered pawns, each serving his hidden agenda, unknowingly or not, to dismantle the existing cosmic hierarchy. The Charred Council, with their omniscient gaze and unparalleled sensory capabilities, were not oblivious to these machinations for long. They began to detect a significant and deeply troubling disturbance in the balance. It was not a localized tremor, but a widespread systemic instability, an almost imperceptible shift in the cosmic energies that underpinned reality. Simultaneously, their scrying pools and ethereal sensors registered an alarming and unprecedented surge in demonic activity across countless realms. This wasn't the usual cyclical ebb and flow of demonic incursions. This was a coordinated, amplified surge, indicating a singular malevolent intelligence orchestrating these events. The sheer scale and intensity of this demonic uprising, coupled with the subtle but undeniable shifts in the balance, sent ripples of concern through the Stoic Council. They understood that something truly monumental was afoot, a threat that went beyond mere territorial disputes or isolated acts of rebellion. This was an existential threat aimed at the very heart of the cosmic order they were sworn to protect. Recognizing the gravity of the situation and the unprecedented nature of the threat, the Charred Council made a decisive and immediate response. They dispatched two of their most formidable horsemen, Strife, the agile and sardonic master of firearms, and War, the unyielding and honorable embodiment of conflict. Their mission was twofold. First, to hunt down Lucifer, the suspected architect of this burgeoning chaos, and bring him to justice for his transgressions against the balance. Second, to thoroughly investigate the widespread unrest, to understand the true scope of the demonic surge, and to neutralize any immediate threats to the cosmic order. This was a critical assignment, demanding both the strategic cunning of Strife and the raw, unyielding power of War. The fate of the universe, or at least its delicate balance, rested heavily on their shoulders. Their journey began, as many such cosmic investigations do, in the desolate and foreboding realm of the Void. The Void is not a mere empty space. It is a nexus between worlds, a swirling maelstrom of raw, untamed energy and forgotten realities. It is a place of transit, a crossroads for those who traverse the boundaries of creation, and often a dumping ground for the unwanted detritus of existence. It is here, amidst the swirling mists and spectral landscapes, that War and Strife materialized, their forms radiating an aura of power that even the desolate Void seemed to acknowledge. The very air crackled with their presence, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence of the realm. Their investigation began with the most obvious signs of the disturbance: the unusually aggressive and powerful lesser demons that now infested the fringes of the Void and its interconnected pathways. These were not the common, easily dispatched demonic fodder. These creatures exhibited an unnatural strength, a heightened ferocity, and a disturbing resilience that suggested an external source of empowerment. War and Strife, with their millennia of experience in battling all manner of infernal creatures, immediately recognized these anomalies. They systematically began to track down and confront these empowered demons, using their immense combat skills to cut a swathe through the burgeoning demonic hordes. Each encounter provided them with more data, more clues, painting an increasingly grim picture of the unfolding crisis. They sought not just to eliminate the threats, but to understand why these demons were suddenly so potent and who was responsible for their unnatural strength. Through a combination of brutal interrogation, meticulous tracking, and sheer force of will, War and Strife began to uncover the disturbing truth. They stumbled upon evidence of a grander, more insidious plot orchestrated by the demon lord Belial. Belial, a cunning and ambitious figure within the demonic hierarchy, was not acting alone. He was actively distributing Lucifer's cores of power to other demon lords and their legions, effectively acting as Lucifer's primary agent in this initial phase of cosmic destabilization. Belial's motivation was clear. He sought to create a massive, unstoppable demonic army. This army, empowered by Lucifer's fragments, would not merely conquer a few isolated realms. It would challenge the very authority of the Charred Council, shattering the balance and ushering in an era of demonic dominion over all creation. Belial envisioned himself as a key figure in this new chaotic order, a general leading the charge against the forces of light and order. His ambition was boundless, fueled by the raw power flowing from Lucifer's cores. As their investigation deepened, War and Strife had their first direct encounter with one of these empowered demon lords, Astarte. Astarte, a formidable demoness known for her cunning and mastery of dark magic, had received one of Lucifer's cores, significantly augmenting her already considerable powers. The battle was fierce, a testament to the enhanced capabilities of these core-infused demons. War, with his devastating blows and unyielding defense, clashed directly with Astartes' physical manifestations of power, while Strife, with his twin pistols Mercy and Redemption, rained down a torrent of precision fire, exploiting every opening and weakness. Despite Astartes' newfound strength, the combined might and tactical brilliance of the Horsemen proved superior. They ultimately defeated her, a significant victory that provided crucial insights. From Astartes' defeat, the Horsemen gleaned a vital piece of information that solidified their understanding of Lucifer's insidious plot. They learned that the cores were not merely artifacts of dark magic or specially crafted demonic talismans. Instead, they were fragments of Lucifer's own immense power, literal pieces of his essence. This revelation was chilling. It meant that Lucifer was not just empowering his allies, he was literally distributing himself, his very being, across the demonic ranks. This explained the unprecedented surge in demonic power and the widespread nature of the disturbance. Each core was a direct conduit to the Prince of Darkness, allowing his influence and strength to permeate the demonic armies on an unimaginable scale. This was not a simple rebellion. It was a carefully orchestrated, deeply personal assault on the balance, with Lucifer himself as the weapon. The stakes, War and Strife now fully understood, were far higher than they had initially conceived. Their mission had just become infinitely more dangerous, and the fate of the cosmos hung by an even thinner thread. Their relentless pursuit of the scattered demon cores, the very fragments of power Lucifer sought to exploit, leads War and Strife through a gauntlet of demonic strongholds and blighted, corrupted lands. Each step takes them deeper into the infernal tapestry of the abyss, a realm where the very air crackles with malevolence and the ground groans under the weight of ancient evils. They traverse the treacherous lava's edge, a volcanic wasteland where rivers of molten rock carve fiery paths through desolate peaks, and the Stygian below, a subterranean labyrinth of shadowy caverns and grotesque fungal growths. Every environment is a testament to the pervasive corruption spreading from Lucifer's machinations, a physical manifestation of the disruption of the cosmic balance. The Horsemen, ever vigilant, confront and defeat numerous lesser demons. Each encounter a brutal dance of steel and shot, a grim prelude to the greater evils that lie ahead. Their relentless campaign culminates in a confrontation with the avaricious Mammon, the demon lord of greed, within his sprawling, treasure-laden vault. This isn't merely a storage space for ill-gotten gains, it's a monument to his insatiable hunger, a labyrinthine complex of gold-plated walls, shimmering jewels, and mountains of plundered wealth. Mammon himself is a grotesque embodiment of his vice, a rotund, multi-limbed creature whose very form seems to ripple with the weight of his hoarded riches. He commands a legion of constructs, animated statues of gold and precious metals, each imbued with a fraction of his avarice and programmed to defend his treasures with deadly precision. The battle is a chaotic symphony of clanging steel against gold, the thunderous reports of Strife's pistols echoing through the cavernous vault as War cleaves through the metallic defenders. Mammon, in his desperation, attempts to overwhelm them with sheer numbers, summoning waves of his animated guardians, but the synchronized might of the Horsemen proves too great. War, with his devastating blade Chaos Eater, carves a path through the metallic horde, while Strife, with his unerring aim and rapid-fire projectiles, systematically dismantles the constructs and peppers Mammon with a barrage of shots. Ultimately, Mammon's greed proves to be his undoing, as his focus on protecting his horde leaves him vulnerable to the Horsemen's coordinated assault. His defeat is a violent explosion of gold and demonic essence, leaving his vault in disarray and his vast fortunes scattered. Mammon's defeat, however, is more than just another victory. It's a crucial revelation. The very nature of his power, derived in part from a demon core, makes it clear that the distribution of these fragments is far more widespread and strategically placed than initially anticipated. Lucifer isn't merely scattering them randomly, he's empowering key figures within the demonic hierarchy, creating a network of formidable agents. This understanding shifts the Horsemen's strategy, moving them from a simple retrieval mission to a more targeted elimination of Lucifer's most potent lieutenants, each holding a piece of his grand design. The sheer number of cores involved and the power they bestow paints a clearer, more terrifying picture of Lucifer's ambition. With this new insight, War and Strife track down the monstrous Moloch, the demon lord of fury, to his blood-soaked arena of combat. This isn't just a fighting pit, it's a coliseum of carnage, a testament to Moloch's unbridled aggression and his insatiable thirst for battle. The arena is carved from obsidian and bone. It stands filled with frenzied lesser demons baying for blood, their roars echoing through the cavernous space. Moloch himself is a towering brute, a hulking mass of muscle and spikes, wielding a massive, blood-stained hammer that could crush mountains. He revels in combat, his every move a testament to raw, untamed power. The battle against Moloch is a brutal, visceral affair. The arena itself becomes a weapon, with Moloch attempting to use its various traps and environmental hazards to his advantage, summoning waves of his berserker demons, creatures fueled by pure rage, to overwhelm the Horsemen. War, ever the warrior, meets Moloch's ferocity head-on, engaging him in a devastating close-quarters duel, deflecting his thunderous blows with KO Cedar and retaliating with equally powerful strikes. Strife, employing his agility and range prowess, keeps the Berserkers at bay, preventing them from flanking War, all while peppering Moloch with precision shots, slowly chipping away at his formidable defenses. The Horsemen's combined strategy of direct confrontation and tactical support eventually wears down Moloch's relentless assault. His fury, once his greatest strength, becomes his undoing as he exhausts himself in his blind rage. His defeat is a cataclysmic event, the very arena trembling as his colossal form crashes to the ground, his demonic essence dissipating in a final furious roar. Moloch's core is retrieved from his fallen form, a pulsating orb of dark energy that crackles with the remnants of his power. This further weakens Lucifer's overall scheme. Each retrieved core is a direct blow to his ability to manipulate the cosmic balance, a fragment of his grand design being systematically dismantled. The Horsemen are not just collecting artifacts, they are actively disrupting Lucifer's carefully laid plans, preventing him from achieving the critical mass of power he needs to unleash his ultimate agenda. The impact of each successful retrieval resonates throughout the demonic hierarchy, creating ripples of unease and forcing Lucifer to adjust his strategy. It is through the analysis of the retrieved cores combined with intercepted demonic communications and the interrogation of lesser demons that the Horsemen make a crucial discovery. Belial, the enigmatic and cunning demon lord of lies, is acting as Lucifer's primary agent in this elaborate scheme. Belial is not merely a pawn, he is the architect of Lucifer's terrestrial operations, the one orchestrating the distribution of the cores and coordinating the actions of the empowered demons. His intelligence, his ability to manipulate and deceive, makes him a far more dangerous adversary than the brute force of Moloch or the avarice of Mammon. This revelation shifts the focus of their mission once again, from simply collecting cores to directly confronting the mastermind behind their distribution. Their pursuit leads them to infiltrate Belial's fortress, a sprawling, insidious stronghold that reflects his deceptive nature. It's not a fortress of overt power like Moloch's arena, but one of subtle traps, shifting illusions, and hidden dangers. The architecture itself seems to twist and contort, designed to disorient and confuse intruders. They face Belial's elite demonic guard, creatures specifically bred and trained for stealth and subterfuge, masters of ambush and psychological warfare. These aren't the mindless throngs of lesser demons. They are cunning, disciplined warriors who employ tactics designed to exploit the Horsemen's individual weaknesses. The fortress is also riddled with ingenious traps, ranging from magically concealed pits to illusions that lure victims into deadly ambushes, each designed to test the Horsemen's wits as much as their combat prowess. War and Strife must rely on their combined experience and unique abilities to navigate this treacherous environment. War's unwavering determination and brute strength allow him to smash through many of the physical obstacles, while Strife's keen senses and ability to perceive hidden threats prove invaluable in disarming traps and exposing illusions. Within the twisting corridors of Belial's fortress, they encounter and defeat the Demon Lord Dagon, a powerful general serving directly under Belial. Dagon is a formidable warrior, a master of dark magic and close-quarters combat, whose loyalty to Belial is absolute. He commands a specialized unit of Belial's elite guard, creatures that are both physically imposing and adept at arcane arts. The battle against Dagon is a test of the Horseman's adaptability, as he employs a combination of devastating magical attacks and brutal physical assaults, attempting to overwhelm them with both raw power and strategic spells. War engages Dagon directly, his heavy blows countered by Dagon's dark enchantments, while Strife provides crucial support, disrupting Dagon's spellcasting and picking off his elite guard, preventing them from flanking War. The fight is a brutal dance of elemental magic and steel, with the Horsemen eventually overcoming Dagon's combined might through their unwavering teamwork and superior combat skills. Dagon's defeat is not merely another notch on their belt, it provides crucial intelligence on Belial's ultimate plans. Through the remnants of Dagon's consciousness, or perhaps through encrypted demonic messages salvaged from his person, War and Strife learn the terrifying truth. Belial intends to use the collected cores to open a massive portal. This isn't just a minor rift, it's a gateway of unprecedented scale, capable of invading other realms, not just the realms of humanity, but potentially other celestial domains, or even the very fabric of creation itself. This revelation elevates the stakes considerably. Lucifer's plan is not simply to destabilize the balance of the realms, it is to launch a full-scale invasion, a cosmic war that would engulf all of existence. The urgency of their mission intensifies dramatically, as they now understand the true scale of the cataclysm they are striving to prevent. Their path then leads them to confront and defeat the enigmatic demon lord Vulgrim. Vulgrim is a unique figure in the demonic hierarchy. While empowered by a core, he often acts as a merchant, trading in souls, artifacts, and information. He is a creature of avarice and pragmatism, always looking for an advantage, always seeking to profit from the chaos. His lair, a shadowy bazaar filled with arcane curiosities and captive souls, is a stark contrast to the overt aggression of Moloch or the deceptive nature of Belial's fortress. The confrontation with Vulgrim is less a battle of raw power and more a test of wills and a strategic engagement. Vulgrim, despite his mercantile nature, is a formidable opponent, capable of conjuring dark energies and summoning spectral guardians from the souls he has collected. He attempts to bargain, to bribe, to manipulate the Horsemen, but their resolve is unwavering. The fight is a chaotic melee against his spectral minions and Vulgrim's own dark magic, but the Horsemen's combined might eventually forces him to yield. They do not kill him, recognizing his unique position and potential for future usefulness. Vulgrim, after his defeat, reluctantly provides information about Belial's movements. His pragmatism outweighs his loyalty to Lucifer's cause, especially after experiencing the Horseman's power firsthand. He reveals the location of Belial's inner sanctum, the final stronghold where the portal is being prepared, and offers cryptic clues about the nature of the ritual Belial intends to perform. This information, extracted through a combination of force and unspoken threats, is invaluable. It provides War and Strife with the final pieces of the puzzle, allowing them to pinpoint Belial's exact location and understand the critical timing of his malevolent ritual. The stage is now set for the ultimate confrontation, a showdown that will determine the fate of not just humanity, but potentially all realms. The Horsemen, War and Strife, ultimately cornered and defeated Belial in a climactic, brutal battle within his stronghold, a fortress forged from nightmare and shadow, deep within the fiery pits of the abyss. This was no mere skirmish. Belial, a formidable demon prince, commanded legions of infernal creatures, and his lair was a labyrinth of traps and demonic wards designed to repel even the most powerful invaders. The Horsemen, however, were relentless. War, a whirlwind of steel and fury, cleaved through ranks of demons with Chaos Cedar, his legendary blade, while Strife, with his twin pistols Mercy and Redemption, rained down a torrent of precision shots, targeting weak points and exploding demonic constructs. Their combined might and strategic coordination proved too much for Belial, despite his immense power and centuries of experience in warfare. Belial, a master of deception and dark magic, attempted to ensnare them with illusions and summon powerful abyssal creatures, but War's unwavering focus and Strife's keen perception saw through his tricks. The final confrontation was a spectacle of raw power, with Belial unleashing his full demonic form, a towering monstrosity of fire and shadow against the two horsemen. Yet, even this ultimate display of his might was insufficient. War, channeling his inner fury, delivered a devastating blow that shattered Belial's defenses, allowing Strife to land a critical series of shots that finally brought the demon prince to his knees, his essence dissipating into the infernal air. Belial's defeat was a pivotal moment, effectively thwarting a major demonic uprising that had been meticulously planned and orchestrated by Lucifer himself. This uprising, had it succeeded, would have seen the invasion of countless other realms, not just Earth, but also various angelic and demonic territories, plunging the cosmos into an unprecedented era of chaos and destruction. Belial's role was to act as a key general, leading the vanguard of Lucifer's forces and establishing bridgeheads in vulnerable dimensions. His network of demonic agents and hidden portals was extensive, and his influence reached far beyond the confines of the abyss. By eliminating him, War and Strife dismantled a crucial component of Lucifer's grand scheme, disrupting the flow of demonic reinforcements and preventing the coordinated assault that was imminent. The immediate consequence was a significant reduction in demonic activity across multiple fronts, as the leaderless legions scattered and retreated, their morale shattered by the demise of their commander. This victory, therefore, bought invaluable time for other realms and prevented untold suffering, showcasing the Horsemen's crucial role as enforcers of the balance, even when operating outside the direct purview of the Charred Council. Upon Belial's defeat, the Horsemen meticulously retrieved the remaining cores he had gathered. These cores, as you might recall, were fragments of immense power, scattered across the realms, each imbued with a unique essence that Lucifer sought to harness for his nefarious purposes. Belial had been tasked with collecting a significant portion of these, and his stronghold served as a central repository for the ones he had already acquired. The retrieval process was not without its dangers, as Belial's lair was riddled with protective enchantments and traps designed to safeguard these precious artifacts. However, with their combined knowledge and skills, War and Strife systematically disarmed these defenses and located every last core. Each core thrummed with a palpable energy, a testament to its immense power, and handling them required careful precision to avoid accidental release of their destructive potential. The successful recovery of these cores was another significant blow to Lucifer's plans, as it deprived him of crucial components necessary for whatever grand design he was enacting. These cores were not merely power sources. They were, in essence, keys to unlocking or amplifying certain cosmic forces, and their absence would undoubtedly hinder Lucifer's progress significantly. It was through the interrogation of Belial's captured lieutenants and the analysis of documents and artifacts found within his stronghold that War and Strife began to learn of Lucifer's true intentions. This was not merely a conquest, a simple power grab to expand his dominion. Lucifer's ambition was far more insidious, to disrupt the very fabric of the balance, the cosmic equilibrium maintained by the Charred Council. The balance, for those unfamiliar, is the delicate state of harmony between the forces of heaven, hell, and humanity, ensuring no single faction gains absolute dominance. Lucifer, it became clear, sought to shatter this equilibrium, not by outright victory, but by sowing chaos and discord, by dismantling the foundations upon which the balance rested. His goal was not to rule over a conquered universe, but to witness its unraveling, to revel in the anarchy that would ensue. This revelation shifted the Horsemen's understanding of their mission from a simple suppression of a demonic uprising to a much more profound struggle against a cosmic threat. Lucifer's plan, as pieced together by war and strife, involved a multi-pronged approach to sow chaos and discord, specifically designed to weaken the Charred Council's authority. He understood that the Council's power stemmed from its perceived impartiality and its ability to enforce the ancient laws that govern the realms. By instigating conflicts between heaven and hell, by corrupting mortal souls, and by manipulating events to create widespread suffering and injustice, Lucifer aimed to expose the Council's limitations and undermine its legitimacy in the eyes of all factions. He sought to create a climate of mistrust and fear, where the very concept of order and justice would be questioned. His strategy was not direct confrontation, but rather insidious manipulation, pulling strings from the shadows to orchestrate events that would inevitably lead to widespread instability. He was, in essence, waging a psychological war, eroding faith in the established order and paving the way for his own brand of chaotic dominion. This was a far more sophisticated and dangerous strategy than any mere military campaign, as it targeted the very philosophical underpinnings of the Darksiders universe. As they delved deeper into the recovered intelligence, the Horsemen realized that Lucifer's scheme was far grander than a simple power grab for territory or influence. It was an elaborate, intricate plot, spanning centuries, designed to fundamentally reshape the cosmos according to his own nihilistic vision. He was not interested in being a king. He was interested in being an architect of destruction, a force of ultimate entropy. His actions were not driven by a desire for personal glory, but by an ideological conviction that the balance was a flawed and artificial construct, and that true freedom lay in absolute chaos. This realization was unsettling, as it meant their enemy was not a predictable warmonger, but a cunning and patient strategist with a profound philosophical agenda. They understood that Lucifer was not merely seeking to expand his domain, but to dismantle the entire cosmic order, leaving nothing but anarchy in his wake. This elevated the stakes of their mission from containing a rebellion to safeguarding the very existence of the Darksiders universe as they knew it. They understood, with a chilling clarity, that Lucifer was testing the limits of the Charred Council's power and, by extension, the Horsemen's resolve. Every action he took, every conflict he incited, every soul he corrupted was a probe, a calculated experiment to gauge the Council's response time, its vulnerabilities, and the extent of its influence. He was pushing boundaries, observing where the Council would intervene and where it would hesitate, meticulously gathering data to inform his next, even bolder move. This was a game of cosmic chess, with Lucifer playing the long game, slowly but surely chipping away at the Council's authority. Furthermore, he was testing the Horsemen themselves, pushing them to their physical and moral limits, observing their reactions and assessing their capabilities. He wanted to see how far they could be stretched before they broke, how much chaos they could endure before their faith in the balance wavered. This understanding instilled a new sense of urgency and gravity into their mission, as they realized they were not merely fighting demons, but participating in a grand cosmic trial orchestrated by the most cunning of adversaries. Their actions, or inactions, would have far-reaching consequences, potentially determining the fate of all creation. With their mission accomplished and a comprehensive understanding of Lucifer's true motives, War and Strife reported their findings back to the Charred Council. This was no ordinary debriefing. It was a revelation that shook the very foundations of the Council's understanding of the cosmic threat. They presented the recovered cores, detailed Belial's meticulously planned uprising, and, most importantly, laid bare Lucifer's overarching scheme to dismantle the balance itself. Their report was thorough, backed by irrefutable evidence gathered from Belial's stronghold and the confessions of his captured lieutenants. They explained how Lucifer was not merely seeking conquest, but the complete unraveling of the cosmic order, and how his strategy involved sowing discord and chaos to weaken the Council's authority. The Horsemen conveyed the chilling realization that Lucifer was testing the limits of the Council's power and their own resolve, meticulously probing for weaknesses and vulnerabilities. The Council members, ancient and wise as they were, listened with a gravity rarely seen, their collective gaze fixed on the two horsemen, absorbing the full weight of their intelligence. The Charred Council, after careful deliberation and cross-referencing the Horsemen's report with their own vast repository of ancient prophecies and cosmic observations, acknowledged the severity of Lucifer's actions and the unprecedented threat he posed. The revelations brought forth by War and Strife confirmed their deepest fears and illuminated the true scale of Lucifer's ambition. While the Council had always been aware of Lucifer's disruptive tendencies, they had underestimated the depth of his cunning and the strategic brilliance behind his long-term plan. They recognized that this was not merely another demonic rebellion to be quashed, but a systematic assault on the very principles of cosmic order. The council's pronouncements, usually delivered with detached impartiality, carried a palpable sense of urgency and concern. They understood that Lucifer's machinations, if left unchecked, could indeed lead to the complete collapse of the balance, plunging all realms into an eternal, inescapable abyss of chaos. This acknowledgement marked a significant shift in the council's strategic outlook, moving beyond reactive measures to a more proactive, albeit still cautious approach to containing the ultimate evil. Despite the gravity of the situation, the Horsemen were tasked with continuing to monitor Lucifer's activities, though their direct pursuit of him ended for now. The Council, bound by ancient laws and their own complex political considerations, could not yet sanction a direct all-out assault on Lucifer himself. Such a move would be seen as a declaration of war against a sovereign power within the realms of hell, potentially triggering an even greater cosmic conflict that the Council was not yet prepared to unleash. Instead, their directive to war and strife was to remain vigilant, to observe Lucifer's movements, to gather further intelligence on his evolving plans, and to intervene only when his actions directly threatened the balance in a tangible and undeniable way. This was a frustrating mandate for the Horsemen, who, having faced Lucifer's machinations firsthand, understood the immediate danger he posed. Yet, they were bound by their oaths to the Council and understood the complex political landscape they operated within. Their role shifted from direct confrontation to covert surveillance, a patient watch for the opportune moment to strike, or for Lucifer to overstep a boundary that would justify a more direct intervention. This period of observation, while seemingly passive, was crucial for understanding the full scope of Lucifer's long game and preparing for the inevitable, larger conflict to come. Thus, the events of Darksiders Genesis, unfolding centuries before the cataclysmic events of Darksiders I, meticulously set the stage for future conflicts and the eventual tragic breaking of the Seven Seals. This era was not merely a standalone adventure, it was a foundational chapter, revealing the true antagonist of the Darksiders universe and establishing the cosmic stakes at play. The confrontation with Belial, the unraveling of Lucifer's grand design, and the Council's subsequent cautious response all laid the groundwork for the apocalyptic events that would follow. The cores recovered from Belial, the understanding of Lucifer's desire to dismantle the balance, and the Horsemen's ongoing surveillance all contributed to the intricate web of prophecy and manipulation that would ultimately lead to the premature summoning of the Horsemen and the destruction of Earth. Genesis provided the crucial context, explaining why Lucifer would orchestrate the breaking of the seals, why he would manipulate the events leading to the premature apocalypse, and why the Charred Council would react with such severe measures against war. It revealed the deep-seated tensions, the ancient grudges, and the cosmic machinations that had been simmering beneath the surface for millennia, finally boiling over in a torrent of fire and brimstone, unleashing the end of days and setting in motion the epic saga of the Four Horsemen. The seeds of the apocalypse were sown here in the shadows of Lucifer's ambition, nurtured by his cunning and destined to bloom in a world consumed by war. We now arrive at what many consider the true beginning of the Darksiders saga, the cataclysmic events of the first game, simply titled Darksiders. This era, which unfolds in the present day according to the in-universe timeline, plunges Earth into the throes of a premature apocalypse. For untold millennia, the End War, the final conflict between the forces of heaven and hell, was prophesied to commence only when the Seven Seals were broken. These ancient artifacts, imbued with immense power, served as a divine failsafe, a cosmic signal that the delicate balance between the realms had been irrevocably shattered and that the time for the ultimate reckoning had come. Their breaking would signify a point of no return, a cosmic declaration that the scales had tipped too far and that the universe itself was ready to be remade through fire and blood. The Charred Council, a mysterious and ancient entity composed of three formidable, stone-like beings, functioned as the supreme arbiters of this cosmic balance. Their primary directive was to maintain order across creation, ensuring that neither heaven nor hell gained an insurmountable advantage. They were the ultimate authority, the cosmic police force, if you will, tasked with overseeing the End War when it legitimately began and, crucially, with sanctioning the involvement of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. These legendary figures, of whom war is but one, were the Council's enforcers, their instruments of retribution, meant to restore balance through devastating force when all other avenues failed. Their role was clearly defined: to ride only when the seals were broken, to judge and punish those who transgressed the cosmic order, and to ensure the End War concluded according to the Council's will, not prematurely, not without proper authorization. However, the meticulously crafted cosmic order was about to be violently disrupted. In a shocking and unprecedented turn of events, War, the Red Rider, the Horseman of Strife, was prematurely summoned to Earth. He arrived not to the solemn breaking of the seals, but to a world already in chaos, a world consumed by an apocalypse that had no right to be. His initial descent was marked by confusion and a growing sense of dread. The very air crackled with unnatural energies, the sky was a bruised and angry purple, and the ground beneath him trembled with the force of unimaginable conflict. He expected the clear signal, the shattering of the seals before his call, but found only the deafening roar of battle. This discrepancy was the first and most critical clue that something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. The seals, the very keys to the end war, remained intact, their power unbroken, their purpose unfulfilled. Despite the unbroken seals, Earth was already a battleground for an apocalyptic struggle. Angels, clad in gleaming armor and wielding blades of pure light, clashed violently with grotesque, demonic hordes. This was not a skirmish, nor localized conflict. It was a full-blown war, a brutal, no-holds-barred engagement that had transformed the once thriving human world into a desolate wasteland. The very presence of both factions, locked in such a destructive embrace, was a clear and undeniable indication of a premature start to the end war. The rules had been broken, the timeline shattered, and the consequences were unfolding with terrifying speed and ferocity. Cities lay in ruins, monuments to human ingenuity reduced to rubble and ash. The once vibrant tapestry of human civilization was being systematically unraveled, thread by agonizing thread. As war descended further, the full scope of the devastation became horrifyingly clear. He witnessed firsthand the systematic destruction of humanity, the very species the Council was sworn to protect from such an unsanctioned upheaval. Panicked, screaming mortals were caught in the crossfire, their lives extinguished with casual brutality by both angelic and demonic forces. Buildings crumbled, streets ran red with blood, and the air was thick with the stench of death and burning flesh. The sheer scale of the chaos engulfing the planet was staggering, a testament to the ferocity of the conflict and the utter disregard both sides held for the sanctity of human life. War, a being of immense power and a harbinger of destruction himself, was nonetheless taken aback by the raw, unbridled savagery of what he saw. This was not the orderly, sanctioned apocalypse he was meant to oversee. This was a massacre, a cosmic crime. Amidst the maelstrom of destruction, war's attention was drawn to a particularly fierce engagement. High above the ravaged cityscape, two titanic figures clashed with earth-shattering force. One was Abaddon, the formidable leader of the White Council's forces, a powerful archangel whose presence radiated authority and righteous fury. He was a paragon of heavenly might, a warrior of unparalleled skill and unwavering conviction, entrusted with leading heaven's legions in the defense of creation. His opponent was the demon lord Straga, a monstrous, hulking entity of pure malice and destructive power, whose very form seemed to be forged from the deepest pits of hell. Straga was a force of nature, a living engine of devastation, and his presence on Earth was a terrifying omen. Their battle was a microcosm of the larger conflict, a clash of cosmic titans that epitomized the premature end war. The ground shook with every blow, and the air crackled with the raw power they unleashed. Driven by a sense of duty, or perhaps a primal urge to intervene in such a blatant violation of cosmic law, War attempted to insert himself into the titanic struggle between Abaddon and Straga. He moved with the speed and precision of a seasoned warrior, intending to bring order to the chaos, to understand why these forces were clashing when they should not be. However, before he could fully engage, before he could demand answers or assert his authority as a horseman, he was abruptly pulled away by an unseen force. It was a sensation of immense, irresistible power, a cosmic tug that ripped him from the battlefield with startling speed, leaving him disoriented and bewildered. The abruptness of his departure, the inexplicable nature of the force that claimed him, only deepened the mystery surrounding the premature apocalypse. He was gone in an instant, leaving the warring factions to their destructive dance. War's next conscious moment found him not on the blood-soaked earth, but in the ethereal, imposing presence of the Charred Council. The three ancient beings, their voices resonating with the weight of eons, wasted no time in leveling a grave accusation against him. They believed War himself was responsible for instigating the premature end war. Their accusations were delivered with an unsettling calm, their stone visages impassive, yet their words carried the gravity of a cosmic judgment. They argued that his unsanctioned arrival on Earth, his presence amidst the chaos, was prima facie evidence of his culpability. To the Council, the very act of a horseman appearing without the breaking of the seals was an act of rebellion, a direct challenge to their authority and the established cosmic order. The Council's belief was that War, in a monumental act of betrayal, had broken the Seven Seals himself, and, worse yet, had sided with one of the warring factions, thereby disrupting the delicate balance they were sworn to uphold. They saw his presence as a deliberate act of aggression, a calculated move to tip the scales in favor of either heaven or hell, or perhaps even to pursue his own agenda. Their logic was stark. The seals were unbroken, yet a horseman was on Earth, and an apocalypse was raging. The only logical conclusion from their rigid and ancient perspective was that War had transgressed. This accusation struck at the very core of War's being, challenging his honor, his loyalty, and his fundamental purpose as an enforcer of the Council's will. War, however, vehemently denied the accusation. His voice, usually a rumble of controlled power, was laced with a genuine sense of outrage and indignation. He asserted with unwavering conviction that the seals were intact when he arrived on Earth. He recounted his experience, the confusion, the sight of the ongoing war, and the shock of finding the seals undisturbed. He argued that his presence was a mystery to him as well, that he had been summoned without the proper protocols, and that he was as much a victim of this cosmic deception as anyone else. His honor, his very existence as a horseman, was predicated on his adherence to the Council's laws, and to be accused of such a fundamental betrayal was an insult he could not abide. He was a soldier, a weapon, not a schemer. Despite War's impassioned defense, the Council remained unconvinced, or perhaps unwilling to be convinced. They stripped him of his immense powers, a devastating act that left him vulnerable and weakened. His formidable strength, his innate connection to the forces of destruction, his very essence as a horseman were systematically siphoned away, leaving him a shadow of his former self. This was not merely a punishment, it was a means of control, ensuring he could not further disrupt the cosmic order. They then sent him back to Earth, the very world he had just witnessed being torn apart, with a singular, grim mission: to uncover the truth behind the premature apocalypse. He was now a pawn, stripped of his power, sent to investigate a crime he was accused of committing. The irony was not lost on him. To ensure his compliance and to serve as the Council's eyes and ears, a being known only as the Watcher was bound to War. The Watcher was a malicious, parasitic entity, a creature of immense power and cunning, whose very existence was dedicated to monitoring and controlling its host. It manifested as a grotesque, spectral figure, its voice a constant, taunting whisper in War's mind, its chains literally binding them together. The Watcher's primary task was to report War's every move, every thought, every transgression, back to the Charred Council. It was a constant reminder of War's subjugation, a tangible manifestation of his loss of freedom and the Council's unwavering suspicion. The Watcher was both jailer and informant, a constant tormentor whose presence ensured War's mission would be carried out, willingly or otherwise. War crash-landed back on Earth, the force of his descent creating a crater in the ravaged landscape. The impact was far more jarring than his initial arrival, a testament to his weakened state. He found himself severely diminished, his powers gone, his once indomitable strength reduced to a fraction of what it once was. The once familiar connection to his steed, Ruin, the magnificent red warhorse, was severed. Ruin, a creature of fire and fury, was nowhere to be found, leaving War stranded and vulnerable in a world consumed by war. This loss was not merely practical, it was symbolic, representing the stripping away of his identity as a horseman. It was then that the Watcher, its spectral form hovering menacingly, elucidated War's true mission. With a chillingly detached tone, it explained that War was to find the true culprit behind the premature apocalypse. He was to uncover the conspiracy, the betrayal, the force that had dared to initiate the end war without the sanction of the Charred Council. Only by bringing the real perpetrator to justice, by exposing the truth, could War hope to clear his name and reclaim his honor, and perhaps his lost power. The Watcher's words were a bitter pill, a heavy burden placed upon a warrior already stripped of his might and accused of treason. The game had begun, and War, the accused, was now forced to become the detective, navigating a world of angels, demons, and shattered humanity, all while bound to his tormentor. This was just the beginning of his arduous journey through the chaos of the Darksiders universe. War, now stranded and stripped of his former power, found himself in a world utterly transformed. The once vibrant Earth was a scorched battlefield, a testament to the cataclysmic conflict that had raged in his absence. As he navigated the ruins, the Horseman of Strife was immediately confronted by the ongoing war, a brutal clash between the angelic forces of the White City and the demonic hordes of the Destroyer. This wasn't the ordered, preordained conflict of the End War that he had anticipated, but a chaotic, unholy free-for-all, with both sides seemingly oblivious to the true nature of the events. War, driven by a fierce need to understand the betrayal and clear his name, began to unravel a horrifying conspiracy that implicated not just angels and demons, but potentially even the highest echelons of the universe's power structure. His initial encounters were with lesser demons and rogue angels, all of whom seemed to view him as an enemy, further cementing his isolation and the injustice of his predicament. During his perilous journey through the desolated urban landscapes, War's path frequently intersected with Vulgrim, a demon merchant of considerable influence and even greater avarice. Vulgrim, a grotesque but cunning figure, operated from hidden alcoves and shadowy marketplaces, always appearing just when War was in dire need of supplies or information. The demon, with his unsettling grin and penchant for bartering, offered War aid, including weapons, armor upgrades, and crucial intel, but never without a steep price: the souls of War's defeated enemies. These souls, shimmering fragments of vanquished foes, were the currency of the underworld, and Vulgrim amassed them with an insatiable hunger. This transactional relationship, though born of necessity, provided War with a vital lifeline in the hostile environment, allowing him to gradually regain some of his combat prowess and acquire tools essential for his quest. Vulgrim, ever the opportunist, seemed to possess an uncanny awareness of War's objectives, hinting at a deeper network of information that stretched throughout the demon realms. Through these interactions and through the fragmented whispers of surviving humans and the taunts of his demonic adversaries, War began to piece together the grim reality of Earth's current state. He learned of the Destroyer's meteoric rise to power, a figure of immense strength who had seized control of the planet in the wake of the premature apocalypse. The Destroyer, whose identity remained shrouded in mystery to War at this early stage, had established an iron grip over Earth, transforming it into a desolate wasteland populated by his demonic legions. Human survivors were few and far between, hunted relentlessly or enslaved, their cities reduced to rubble, and their hopes extinguished. The very air of Earth was thick with corruption, a tangible manifestation of the Destroyer's dominion. This revelation fueled War's indignation, confirming that the balance had been irrevocably shattered and that the End War had been initiated under false pretenses, making his mission of uncovering the truth all the more urgent. To gain a deeper understanding of the Destroyer's machinations and to find a path to confront him, War sought out Samael, a powerful and ancient demon notorious for his cunning and his vast knowledge of the underworld. Samael, however, was not easily found, for he had been imprisoned by the Destroyer himself, a testament to the Demon Lord's power and his fear of rivals. War eventually located Samael, bound within an arcane prison in the heart of the demon-infested ruins, his once formidable power suppressed, but his intellect and malevolence undiminished. Samael, recognizing War's potential and his shared enemy, saw an opportunity for his own liberation and a chance to undermine the Destroyer. He offered War crucial information and a path to the Destroyer's stronghold, but, true to his demonic nature, he demanded a steep price. Samael, ever the manipulator, stipulated that in exchange for passage to the Black Throne, the Destroyer's fortress, War would have to retrieve the hearts of 4 powerful demons, each a formidable general in the Destroyer's army. These hearts, infused with immense demonic energy, were not merely symbolic trophies but potent sources of power that Samael intended to consume, thereby restoring his own strength and breaking free from his confinement. The task was a daunting one, a gauntlet of trials designed to test War's resolve and combat prowess to their absolute limits. Each of these 4 demons represented a different aspect of the Destroyer's dominion, guarding key territories and embodying distinct forms of demonic might. War's first target was Tiamat, a monstrous winged demoness who commanded the skies above the shattered cities. Tiamat, with her bat-like wings, razor-sharp claws, and ability to unleash devastating sonic screams, was a formidable aerial combatant. She had established her lair in the ruins of a colossal skyscraper, using its height as a vantage point from which to terrorize the land. War, after a grueling ascent and a perilous aerial battle, managed to ground the beast. The fight was a test of agility and precise timing, as War had to dodge her aerial assaults and exploit openings to inflict damage. Ultimately, through sheer determination and his mastery of combat, War defeated Tiamat, tearing out her still-beating heart as a trophy and a testament to his growing power. This act, brutal as it was a necessary step in his quest, a grim reminder of the sacrifices required to achieve his objective. Next, War set his sights on Griever, a colossal spider-like demon that had made its lair in the labyrinthine depths of the subway system, a subterranean network of tunnels and abandoned stations. Griever was a creature of immense size and terrifying speed, capable of scuttling through the confined spaces with surprising agility. Her venomous fangs and ability to spin sticky webs made her a deadly adversary, trapping and devouring any who dared to trespass into her domain. The battle with Griever was a claustrophobic and intense affair, forcing War to navigate the treacherous environment while simultaneously fending off the spider's relentless attacks. He had to use the environment to his advantage, exploiting structural weaknesses and luring Griever into vulnerable positions. After a brutal struggle, War managed to overcome the monstrous arachnid, extracting her pulsating heart to add to his grim collection. War's third target was Stygian, a colossal worm-like demon that burrowed beneath the scorched earth, leaving trails of destruction in its wake. Stygian was a creature of immense power, capable of erupting from the ground with devastating force and unleashing torrents of corrosive bile. It had made its home in the desolate canyons and ravaged plains, its movements causing seismic tremors that shook the very foundations of the world. The encounter with Stygian was a test of endurance and strategic thinking, as War had to anticipate the worm's movements and strike at its vulnerable points while avoiding its powerful charges and acidic attacks. He utilized his newfound abilities and the environment, often forcing the colossal beast to expose itself before delivering decisive blows. The battle culminated in a brutal confrontation where War, with a final powerful strike, managed to slay the massive worm, claiming its heart as his third trophy. Finally, War sought out Selitha, another formidable spider queen, though distinct from Griever. Selitha, unlike the brute force of Griever, was a creature of cunning and illusion, weaving intricate web layers within the ruins of ancient structures. She possessed the ability to teleport short distances and summon swarms of smaller spiderlings to overwhelm her foes. Her venom was potent, and her movements were swift and unpredictable, making her a challenging adversary. The battle with Selitha was a dance of death, requiring War to anticipate her teleportations, manage the hordes of her offspring, and exploit her moments of vulnerability. He had to employ all of his combat skills and tactical prowess to overcome her deceptive tactics and overwhelming numbers. After a fierce and protracted engagement, War finally defeated Selitha, adding her heart to the collection, completing the grisly task set by Samael. With the 4 hearts in hand, War returned to Samael's prison. The ancient demon, his eyes gleaming with renewed malevolence, eagerly consumed the hearts, each one infusing him with a surge of raw demonic power. As the last heart was absorbed, Samael's bonds shattered, and his true form, a towering and terrifying manifestation of demonic might, was revealed. Empowered by the stolen essence of his rivals, Samael, true to his word, opened a portal to the Black Throne, the Destroyer's impregnable stronghold. The portal shimmered with dark energy, a swirling vortex that promised a direct, albeit perilous path to the heart of the Destroyer's dominion. Samael, now free and formidable, offered War a final cryptic warning, hinting at the true depth of the conspiracy and the dangers that lay ahead before disappearing into the shadows, his own agenda now set in motion. War, without hesitation, stepped through the portal, finding himself in the Ashlands, a desolate and perpetually storm-ravaged wasteland that served as the outer perimeter of the Black Throne. The Ashlands were a stark and unforgiving landscape, a testament to the Destroyer's destructive power, characterized by perpetual sandstorms, jagged rock formations, and the skeletal remains of colossal creatures. This treacherous region was heavily patrolled by the Destroyer's elite forces, including massive demonic beasts and heavily armored foot soldiers, all intent on preventing any intrusion into their master's sanctuary. The journey through the Ashlands was a grueling test of survival, forcing War to contend not only with the hostile environment, but also with relentless waves of demonic opposition, each encounter pushing him closer to his limits. It was in the heart of the Ashlands that War experienced a profound reunion. Amidst the swirling sands and the chaos of battle, he reclaimed his legendary steed, Ruin. Ruin, a magnificent and fiery warhorse, had been separated from War during the initial skirmish of the apocalypse, its fate unknown until this moment. The reunion was a powerful moment, symbolizing War's gradual return to his former glory. With Ruin by his side, War's speed, mobility, and combat effectiveness were dramatically enhanced. Ruin was not merely a mount, it was an extension of War's will, a loyal companion that imbued him with a renewed sense of purpose and power. The bond between horseman and steed was an ancient one, and its restoration signaled a significant turning point in War's quest, restoring a vital part of his lost formidable capabilities. Finally, after navigating the treacherous Ashlands and overcoming countless demonic obstacles, War reached the Black Throne itself, a colossal and ominous fortress that loomed over the desolate landscape, radiating an aura of immense power and malevolence. Within its dark halls, War confronted Straga, the Destroyer's most formidable general, a towering demon of immense strength and brutality. Straga, a creature of pure, unadulterated might, wielded a massive, earth-shattering weapon and was encased in impenetrable armor, making him a truly terrifying adversary. The battle with Straga was a brutal clash of titans, a test of pure strength and endurance. War, utilizing all the skills and weapons he had acquired, engaged Straga in a protracted and destructive battle, eventually managing to exploit a weakness in the demon's defenses. With a final, decisive blow, War defeated Straga, paving the way to the Destroyer's inner sanctum. With Straga vanquished, War finally stood before the Destroyer, the architect of Earth's ruin and the instigator of the premature apocalypse. The revelation of the Destroyer's true identity was a shocking twist, one that sent tremors through War's very being. The Destroyer was none other than Abaddon, the former leader of the Hellguard, the angelic forces tasked with defending humanity. Abaddon, once a revered figure of the White City, had fallen from grace, consumed by ambition and fear, and had secretly aligned himself with Hell. This betrayal was the ultimate deception, a meticulously orchestrated plot that had plunged creation into chaos and framed War for a crime he did not commit. Abaddon, now transformed into a grotesque and powerful demonic entity, revealed his twisted motivations, his desire to preemptively strike against the forces of Hell and Heaven, believing he could control the outcome of the End War and establish a new order. This revelation exposed the true depth of the conspiracy, revealing that the premature apocalypse was not an accident, but a calculated act of treachery initiated by one of the most trusted figures in the angelic host. With the Destroyer's true form revealed, War finally stood face to face with the architect of the premature apocalypse, a figure he had once considered a brother in arms, Abaddon. The revelation was a gut punch, a betrayal on a cosmic scale. Abaddon, the former leader of the Hellguard, the very legions of heaven tasked with defending humanity, had not merely fallen, he had orchestrated the entire cataclysm. His grand design, laid bare in the fiery heart of the Black Throne, was not merely to conquer, but to usurp the delicate balance of creation itself. Abaddon, in his monstrous demonic guise, articulated his audacious plan: to seize control, to forge a new order from the ashes of the old, an order where he, as the Destroyer, would reign supreme, free from the constraints of the Charred Council's dominion. He envisioned a universe purged of the Council's meddling, a realm where power, not balance, dictated destiny. This was not a mere demonic invasion, but a calculated coup, a power grab disguised as divine judgment. War, reeling from the deception, learned the full extent of Abaddon's treachery. The premature apocalypse, the very event that had led to his wrongful condemnation, was not a mistake or an accident, but a meticulously planned maneuver. Abaddon, fearing the true end war, the prophesied final conflict between heaven and hell, had chosen to preempt it. He believed that by initiating a false apocalypse, he could gain enough power, rally enough forces, and establish a new regime before the true forces of the Destroyer, a cosmic entity far more ancient and terrifying, could be unleashed. His goal was to consolidate power, to become the ultimate arbiter of fate, preventing the true Armageddon by becoming the false one. He sought to exploit the chaos, to manipulate both heaven and hell into a conflict that would ultimately serve his own ascension. The irony was not lost on war. The one meant to protect humanity had become its greatest threat, sacrificing countless lives for his own twisted ambition. Abaddon's transformation was not just physical, it was a complete corruption of his being, a descent into megalomania fueled by fear and a lust for absolute control. He had used his knowledge of angelic and demonic strategies, his understanding of the seals and their significance, to orchestrate a scenario that would plunge Earth into chaos, all while positioning himself to emerge as the dominant power. He had even manipulated Uriel, convincing her that his actions were divinely inspired, a necessary evil to avert a greater catastrophe. The confrontation between War and the Destroyer was a brutal, visceral struggle, a clash of ideologies as much as a battle of raw power. War, fueled by righteous fury and a desperate need for answers, fought with a ferocity born of betrayal. He had been a pawn in a game he hadn't understood, a scapegoat for a conspiracy he was only now beginning to unravel. The Destroyer, for all his monstrous power, was ultimately no match for the enraged Horsemen. War, wielding Chaos Eater with renewed purpose, systematically dismantled Abaddon's demonic form, each blow a strike against the lies and deceptions that had plagued his journey. With a final, devastating strike, War defeated the Destroyer, forcing him to revert to his angelic form, albeit a broken and bloodied one. In that moment of victory, the true orchestrators of the premature apocalypse were revealed, not as a singular entity, but as a complex web of manipulation. Abaddon was the primary architect, but his scheme had been allowed to unfold, even encouraged by forces far more ancient and insidious. It was then, in the aftermath of the battle, that War's understanding of the conspiracy deepened, shifting from anger to a chilling realization. He learned that the Charred Council, the very entity that had dispatched him to Earth and condemned him for his supposed transgressions, was not merely ignorant of Abaddon's treachery, but had been fully aware of it from the very beginning. They had allowed the premature apocalypse to unfold, allowed countless human lives to be extinguished, allowed War to be falsely accused and hunted, all for a single, horrifying purpose: to test the Horsemen. The Council, in their infinite, detached wisdom, saw the premature apocalypse not as a catastrophe, but as an elaborate trial, a crucible designed to gauge the Horsemen's loyalty, their strength, and their unwavering commitment to the balance. They had orchestrated a grand deception, sacrificing untold lives to observe and manipulate the very agents meant to uphold their will. This revelation was a profound shock, a betrayal far deeper than Abaddon's. The Council, supposedly the impartial arbiters of cosmic order, were revealed to be cold, calculating manipulators, willing to sacrifice entire civilizations for their own inscrutable agenda. War was not merely a pawn, but a guinea pig, his suffering and the destruction of Earth a mere experiment in their grand design. As War grappled with this horrifying truth, the Watcher, his ever-present snarky companion and tormentor, shed his facade. The creature, bound to War by a magical chain and tasked with ensuring his compliance, revealed his true allegiance. He was not merely an observer, but an agent of the Charred Council, a direct instrument of their will. His incessant taunts, his veiled threats, his constant monitoring, all made chilling sense now. He had been sent not to guide War, but to control him, to ensure he played his part in the Council's elaborate scheme. With War's mission seemingly complete and the Destroyer defeated, the Watcher's true purpose was revealed: to execute War. The Council, having used War to expose Abaddon and restore a semblance of order, now sought to eliminate the loose end, the Horsemen who had witnessed their treachery and learned too much. The Watcher, his voice devoid of its usual sarcasm, transformed into a menacing serpentine figure, his true power unleashed, ready to carry out the Council's chilling decree. The magical chain, once a symbol of War's bondage, became a weapon, tightening around his neck, threatening to choke the life out of him. But the Council, in their arrogance, had underestimated War. They had stripped him of his power, bound him, and sent him on a fool's errand, but they had not broken his spirit. As the Watcher moved to deliver the killing blow, War, fueled by the rage of betrayal and the injustice of his situation, accessed a hidden reservoir of power. The trials he had endured, the battles he had fought, the truths he had uncovered had forged him anew. With a surge of raw, untamed energy, War broke free from the Watcher's control. The magical chain, the symbol of his subjugation, snapped, shattering the Council's hold over him. The Watcher, momentarily stunned by this unexpected defiance, found himself facing a horseman no longer bound by their will. The tables had turned. War, no longer a captive, but a force unleashed, swiftly retaliated. He had suffered enough, been manipulated enough. With a brutal, decisive strike, War killed the Watcher, severing the last tangible link to the Charred Council's control. The creature's demise was swift and unceremonious, a testament to War's newfound autonomy and his unwavering resolve. The act was not merely one of self-preservation, but a declaration of war against the very entity that had sought to control him. From the Watcher's lifeless corpse, War retrieved the seventh seal. This wasn't merely a trinket, but a sacred artifact, one of the 7 seals that bound the horsemen and kept them from intervening in the affairs of mortals until the true end war. The council had given him a broken seal at the outset of his journey, a symbolic gesture of their broken trust. Now, holding the intact 7th seal, War understood its true significance. It was the key, the final piece of the puzzle that would summon his brethren. But more than that, it represented his freedom, his defiance, and his ultimate rejection of the council's authority. The seal, once a symbol of his duty, now became a symbol of his rebellion. With the 7th seal in his hand, War's understanding of the conspiracy crystallized. He saw the full extent of the council's manipulation, their willingness to sacrifice humanity, an entire race, for their own agenda. The balance, as they defined it, was a brutal, self-serving construct, maintained through deception and controlled chaos. Humanity, caught between the warring factions of heaven and hell, was merely collateral damage, a convenient testing ground for their power plays. The Council, in their infinite wisdom, saw themselves as the ultimate arbiters, but War now saw them as tyrants, their impartiality a cruel illusion. Their actions were not about maintaining order, but about maintaining their own absolute power, even if it meant the annihilation of countless innocent lives. The revelation was a bitter pill to swallow, a profound disillusionment with the very authority he had sworn to serve. War, now fully understanding the vast, insidious conspiracy, made a monumental choice. He would defy the Council. He would no longer be their pawn, their instrument of destruction. His purpose was no longer to merely restore the balance, but to expose the truth, to reclaim his honor, and to seek justice for the wronged. This was a turning point, a moment of profound transformation for the Horsemen. He had been accused, hunted, betrayed, and now he stood ready to turn the tables on his tormentors. His loyalty, once absolute, had been shattered by the Council's deceit. His path, once dictated, was now his own. He would forge his own destiny, even if it meant standing against the most powerful entity in creation. With a powerful, defiant gesture, War broke the 7th seal. The act was a declaration, a thunderous crack that echoed across the realms, a challenge to the very fabric of existence. The breaking of the 7th seal was not merely a symbolic act, but a cataclysmic event, a breach of ancient law that sent shockwaves through the cosmos. It was the signal, the long-awaited summons that would bring the other horsemen to Earth. The true end war, the one Abaddon had tried to prevent, was now truly upon them, not as a result of heaven and hell's conflict, but as a direct consequence of War's defiance. And so, in a blinding flash of celestial energy, death, fury, and strife arrived on Earth. The 3 horsemen, formidable and terrifying in their own right, materialized amidst the devastated landscape, witnessing the aftermath of War's actions. The world was a ruin, a testament to the premature apocalypse, but also a battlefield where War had fought not just demons, but the very forces of cosmic order. Their arrival was not a reunion, but a convergence, a gathering of forces that would forever alter the course of creation. They stood, silent and imposing, observing the wreckage, the broken balance, and the lone figure of War, who had dared to challenge the established order. The arrival of the other horsemen signified the true beginning of the end war. This was not the false apocalypse, the manipulated conflict that Abaddon had orchestrated, but the genuine, unadulterated Armageddon, a conflict that would pit the horsemen not just against the forces of heaven and hell, but against the very authority that had created them. The breaking of the 7th seal had unleashed a force far greater than any single army, a force capable of reshaping destiny. The game had changed, the stakes had been raised, and the future of all creation hung in the balance. War, standing amidst the ruins, his brothers and sister now by his side, stood ready to face the consequences of his actions. He had defied the Council, broken the seals, and unleashed the true end war. The wrath of the Charred Council would be immense, the retribution swift and merciless. But War was no longer afraid. He had found his purpose, his truth, and his resolve. He was no longer a pawn, but a warrior, a rebel, ready to fight for a justice that transcended the Council's twisted definition of balance. The future of the balance, the fate of creation, now rested squarely on the shoulders of the horsemen. Their journey had just begun, and the path ahead was fraught with peril, but also with the promise of true freedom and a new order, one forged not by manipulation, but by the unwavering will of those who dared to defy cosmic tyranny. The stage was set for a conflict of epic proportions, a war that would determine the very destiny of the universe. While War languished in chains, accused of the gravest transgressions imaginable, his elder brother, Death, was far from idle. We now arrive at the fifth entry in our comprehensive Darksiders timeline, a period that unfolds concurrently with the events of Darksiders Ii, the cataclysmic era known as the Apocalypse. It is during this tumultuous time, as the seventh seal lay shattered and creation teetered on the brink, that Death, the fearsome leader of the four horsemen of the Apocalypse, embarks on a desperate and solitary quest. The tale begins with an accusation that reverberates through the very foundations of the universe. The Charred Council, the ancient and all-powerful entity responsible for maintaining the cosmic balance, convenes in judgment. Their pronouncement is damning. War, the youngest of the horsemen, stands accused of prematurely initiating the apocalypse and, in doing so, orchestrating the wholesale destruction of humanity, a race crucial to the delicate equilibrium between heaven and hell. This act, the council declares, has shattered the truce, violated the ancient laws, and plunged all of creation into chaos. The weight of this accusation is immense, threatening not only War's existence but also the very concept of the horseman's impartiality. Death, however, is not convinced. He knows his brother, knows the rigid adherence to duty that defines War. To believe that War would act without the council's explicit command, without the breaking of the seventh seal, is an impossibility in Death's eyes. Driven by an unwavering loyalty and a deep-seated belief in War's innocence, Death makes a solemn vow. He will clear his brother's name, no matter the cost. This quest, born of familial devotion and a profound sense of justice, becomes the driving force behind his epic journey. His first step takes him to a place of immense cosmic significance, the Serpent Road. This ethereal pathway, a nexus woven into the fabric of reality itself, serves as a conduit between disparate realms, allowing passage to those who know its secrets. It is a place of ancient power and arcane knowledge, a perfect starting point for a journey of such monumental importance. As Death traverses this mystical thoroughfare, he seeks guidance, a direction for his seemingly impossible task. There, awaiting him, is the enigmatic figure known as the Crowfather. This ancient entity, a being of immense power and wisdom, serves as the guardian of the Serpent Road, a keeper of secrets and a dispenser of cryptic truths. The Crowfather, a gaunt figure cloaked in shadow and adorned with the bones and feathers of countless ravens, immediately perceives the true nature of Death's quest. With an unsettling prescience, he reveals the path to absolution. Death must resurrect humanity. Only by restoring the annihilated race can the scales of justice be rebalanced and War's name truly cleared. This revelation is a heavy burden, a task of unimaginable scope, but Death, resolute in his purpose, accepts the challenge. However, the Crowfather's pronouncement comes with a grim addendum. He explains that the souls of humanity, the very essence of their being, were not simply extinguished. Instead, they were consumed, devoured by a malevolent force known as the Corruption. This insidious blight, a dark energy that gnaws at the very fabric of existence, has been slowly spreading its tendrils throughout creation, infecting realms and twisting life into grotesque parodies of its former self. The Corruption is not merely a disease, it is a primal hunger, a destructive force that seeks to consume all that is good and pure. To resurrect humanity, Death must first confront and overcome this encroaching darkness, a task that seems almost as daunting as the resurrection itself. With this crucial information imparted, the Crowfather directs Death towards his next destination, the Makers. These ancient beings, a race of colossal artisans and architects, are renowned throughout creation for their unparalleled skill in forging and shaping. They are capable of both immense creation and devastating destruction, their very essence tied to the act of building and crafting. If anyone possesses the knowledge or the power to unravel the mystery of the consumed souls, or to forge a means to combat the corruption, it is the Makers. They are a race of builders, and perhaps, Death hopes, they can rebuild what has been lost. Following the Crowfather's guidance, Death journeys to the Forge Lands, the ancestral home of the Makers. This realm, once a testament to their incredible craftsmanship and vibrant industry, now stands as a stark monument to the corruption's devastating power. The very air is thick with a palpable sense of decay and despair. Once gleaming structures are crumbling, their intricate designs marred by dark, pulsating growths. The land itself is scarred, twisted into unnatural formations, and the sounds of bustling industry have been replaced by the groans of corrupted machinery and the guttural cries of mutated creatures. The Forge Lands, a place meant for creation, has become a battlefield, a testament to the ongoing war against the encroaching darkness. Upon his arrival, Death encounters a venerable figure, the Maker Elder, Idiard. This ancient and wise maker, his form weathered by countless ages, bears the heavy burden of his people's suffering. Idiard, with a voice heavy with sorrow, explains the true origin of the corruption. He reveals that it is not merely a random plague, but a manifestation of a deeper cosmic imbalance, a wound inflicted upon the very heart of creation. He speaks of its insidious nature, how it twists and perverts, consuming not just physical matter but also the very essence of life and will. He details its relentless spread, its relentless hunger, and the devastating impact it has had on the Forged Lands, once a bastion of strength and innovation. Idiard, seeing the grim determination in Death's eyes, recognizes the Horseman's potential. He understands that Death's quest, though seemingly personal, holds implications for all of creation. The Elder tasks Death with a monumental undertaking, to find 3 specific makers, each a master of their craft, who possess the unique skills necessary to forge the Rod of Araphel. This legendary artifact, a relic of immense power, is believed to be the key, the only means of unlocking the path to the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life, a mythical entity at the very core of all existence, is rumored to hold the power of creation and rebirth, a power that might just be capable of resurrecting humanity. Idiard's instructions are clear. Without the Rod of Araphel, the Tree of Life will remain inaccessible, and humanity's fate will remain sealed. As Death embarks on this new phase of his quest, he finds himself plunged into a relentless struggle against the corruption. The Forged Lands are teeming with its grotesque manifestations. He battles corrupted constructs, once proud creations of the Makers now twisted into monstrous engines of destruction, their metallic forms pulsating with dark energy. He faces off against creatures that have been warped and mutated by the corruption, their once familiar shapes now horrifying parodies, driven by an insatiable hunger and a primal rage. Each encounter is a brutal test of his combat prowess, a constant reminder of the pervasive nature of the enemy he faces. The land itself seems to conspire against him, its treacherous terrain and hidden dangers adding to the already immense challenge. Amidst this chaos, Death encounters an unexpected ally, Karn. This gruff yet honorable maker, a master of his craft and a formidable warrior in his own right, quickly recognizes Death's unwavering resolve and the importance of his mission. Karn, though initially wary, eventually offers his assistance, becoming an invaluable companion on Death's perilous journey through the ravaged Forged Lands. He aids Death in navigating the treacherous terrain, his knowledge of the land proving invaluable. More importantly, Karn fights alongside Death, his massive hammer a force to be reckoned with against the corrupted hordes, his unwavering loyalty a source of strength in the face of overwhelming odds. Together, they push deeper into the heart of the corrupted realm, a formidable duo against the encroaching darkness. Their combined efforts eventually lead them to a monumental challenge, the Guardian. This colossal entity, once a magnificent creation of the Makers, designed to protect the Forged Lands, has been completely consumed by the corruption. It is a towering behemoth of stone and metal, its every movement shaking the very foundations of the earth, its ancient mechanisms now animated by the malevolent energy of the corruption. The Guardian possesses immense power, its attacks capable of leveling entire structures, and its corrupted form is a testament to the destructive potential of the Blight. After a grueling and epic battle, a true test of Death's skill and Karn's unwavering support, Death finally manages to defeat the corrupted Guardian. From its shattered remains, he retrieves the first crucial piece of the Rod of Araphel, a tangible sign of progress in his seemingly impossible quest. The victory, though hard-won, is a significant step forward, bringing him closer to the Tree of Life and the potential resurrection of humanity. With the first piece of the rod secured, Death's journey takes him to an entirely different realm, a place far removed from the fiery forges and mechanical wonders of the Makers, the kingdom of the dead. This spectral realm, shrouded in an eternal twilight, is the final destination for all souls, a place where they are judged, processed, and ultimately guided to their eternal rest. It is a realm of ancient spirits, spectral guardians, and the chilling silence of countless departed. The very air here hums with the echoes of lives lived and lost, a constant reminder of the fragility of existence. Death, as a horseman, is no stranger to such realms, but even he feels the profound weight of this place, a kingdom dedicated to the ultimate cessation of life. As he navigates the ethereal pathways and spectral landscapes of the kingdom of the dead, Death encounters a curious inhabitant, Ostagoth. This skeletal merchant, a denizen of the underworld, is a purveyor of information and goods, his bony fingers clattering as he haggles over prices and shares cryptic insights. Ostagoth, with his extensive knowledge of the realm and its inhabitants, becomes another valuable source of assistance for Death. He provides crucial information about the kingdom of the dead, its intricate politics, its powerful entities, and the locations of key figures that might aid Death in his quest. He also offers a variety of goods, both mundane and mystical, that can prove invaluable to horsemen on a perilous journey. Ostagoth, though outwardly cynical and driven by profit, seems to possess a deeper understanding of the cosmic forces at play, and his guidance, though often delivered with a sarcastic wit, proves to be surprisingly insightful. Death, ever pragmatic, recognizes the utility of such an ally, even one composed solely of bone and avarice. The journey through the kingdom of the dead promises to be as challenging and enigmatic as the Forged Lands, a new set of obstacles and mysteries to unravel in his relentless pursuit of justice for his brother and the resurrection of humanity. Having proven his formidable will and martial prowess to the Makers, Death's journey to clear War's name and resurrect humanity led him to the desolate yet eerily majestic Kingdom of the Dead. This spectral realm of vast and ancient necropolis was ruled by the enigmatic Lord of Bones, a being of immense power and unfathomable wisdom, whose dominion extended over countless departed souls. Death sought this ancient entity, believing the Lord of Bones held the key to understanding the true nature of the apocalypse, and perhaps a path to undoing its catastrophic effects. The journey through the Kingdom of the Dead was fraught with peril, a landscape sculpted from bone and shadow, where the echoes of countless lives reverberated through the very air. Skeletal guardians, spectral beasts, and the mournful cries of lost souls were constant companions, each a testament to the realm's grim purpose. Upon finally reaching the Lord of Bones' towering citadel, a structure that seemed to defy the very laws of physics, Death was granted an audience. The Lord of Bones, a colossal figure composed of countless interwoven bones, his voice a resonant thunder, did not immediately offer the answers Death sought. Instead, he presented Death with a series of arduous trials, tests designed to gauge not only Death's physical might, but his resolve, his cunning, and the purity of his purpose. The Lord of Bones, being a guardian of the cosmic balance, understood the gravity of Death's quest and the potential ramifications of resurrecting an entire species. He needed assurance that Death's actions would not further destabilize an already fractured creation. These trials were not mere exercises in combat. They delved into the very essence of Death's being, forcing him to confront his past, his allegiances, and the true cost of his desperate mission. Each challenge was a step further into the labyrinthine bureaucracy of the afterlife, a testament to the meticulous order that even Death itself adhered to. One of the most formidable of these early trials involved confronting and defeating the Bone Giant, a gargantuan construct animated by the collective will of countless damned souls. This monstrous entity, a towering edifice of bone and sinew, guarded a crucial artifact, a key that, in the Lord of Bones' cryptic words, would unlock a deeper understanding of the realm's secrets and prove Death's worthiness. The battle against the Bone Giant was a visceral clash of titans, Death's agility and precision pitted against the colossal brute's raw power. The Bone Giant's attacks were devastating, each blow capable of crushing Death into dust, but Death, with his twin scythes, Harvester, and Redemption, danced around the gargantuan foe, exploiting its weaknesses, tearing away at its bony armor until it finally crumbled into a heap of lifeless fragments. With the Bone Giant vanquished, Death retrieved the artifact, a glowing shard of bone, which served as a tangible proof of his triumph and further cemented his standing in the eyes of the Lord of Bones. This victory, however, was merely a prelude, a taste of the greater challenges that lay ahead. Through his interactions with the Lord of Bones and the various denizens of this spectral realm, Death began to piece together fragments of a much larger truth. He learned of the Well of Souls, a legendary artifact, a fount of immense power capable of restoring life, a potential solution to humanity's plight. However, the Well of Souls, a cosmic engine of rebirth and renewal, was not merely inaccessible. It was sealed, its power locked away by ancient, forgotten forces. The very mention of it brought a palpable sense of dread to the spectral inhabitants, hinting at its immense power and the terrible consequences if it were to fall into the wrong hands. The sealing of the well was a deliberate act, a measure taken eons ago to prevent its misuse, and undoing it would require a level of power and understanding that few beings possessed. The path to the well was shrouded in mystery and guarded by forces unknown, making Death's task even more daunting. As Death delved deeper into the Kingdom of the Dead, he made a horrifying discovery. The insidious corruption, the same dark force that had ravaged Earth and infected the Tree of Life, had also infiltrated this sacred realm. It manifested not as a physical blight, but as a spiritual malignancy, twisting the very essence of departed souls, transforming them into grotesque, malevolent monsters. These corrupted souls, once destined for peaceful rest or reincarnation, now roamed the spectral landscape, driven by an insatiable hunger for destruction. This revelation sent a chill down Death's spine, confirming his darkest fears. The corruption was not an isolated incident, but a pervasive cosmic threat, capable of tainting even the most sacred aspects of creation. The presence of the corruption in the Kingdom of the Dead meant that even in death, there was no escape from its insidious grasp, and it raised alarming questions about the true extent of its reach and the identity of the entity orchestrating this universal decay. This pervasive corruption led Death into direct conflict with the Archon, a powerful angel, a staunch defender of order, and a fervent believer in the sanctity of the cosmic balance. The Archon, observing Death's relentless pursuit of answers and his willingness to defy established norms, mistakenly perceived Death as an agent of chaos, a destructive force intent on further destabilizing creation. The Archon, with his unwavering faith and rigid adherence to angelic doctrine, saw Death's attempts to resurrect humanity as an affront to the natural order, a dangerous meddling with forces beyond his understanding. He believed Death's actions would only exacerbate the ongoing crisis, leading to even greater devastation. Their confrontation was inevitable, a clash of ideologies as much as a battle of strength. The Archon, radiating divine light and wielding a formidable angelic blade, attacked Death with righteous fury, convinced he was preventing a greater catastrophe. The battle against the Archon was a testament to Death's unwavering resolve. The angelic warrior was a formidable opponent, his attacks infused with holy energy, his defenses seemingly impenetrable. Yet, Death, with his unparalleled combat skills and his grim determination, eventually overcame the Archon. It was not a battle born of hatred but of conflicting convictions. Death understood the Archon's motivations, even as he fought against him, recognizing the angel's misguided attempts to protect creation. With the Archon defeated, though not slain, Death gained access to the Crystal Spire, a vital location within the Kingdom of the Dead. The Crystal Spire, a towering structure of shimmering crystal, served as a conduit for spiritual energy and held ancient records, knowledge that was crucial to Death's understanding of the Well of Souls and its connection to the greater cosmic tapestry. This victory, while hard-won, opened up new avenues of investigation, pushing Death closer to the truth. Within the hallowed halls of the Crystal Spire, amidst ancient texts and spectral archives, Death made another pivotal discovery. He learned that the Well of Souls, the very source of life and rebirth, was intricately connected to the Tree of Life, the cosmic heart of creation. This connection was profound, a symbiotic relationship where the well nourished the tree, and the tree in turn regulated the flow of souls through the well. However, the unsettling truth was that the Tree of Life itself was also corrupted, its once vibrant essence now withered and tainted by the same dark force that plagued Earth and the Kingdom of the Dead. This revelation was a devastating blow, confirming the pervasive nature of the corruption and highlighting the interconnectedness of all realms. If the Tree of Life, the very anchor of creation, was compromised, then the task of restoring humanity, and indeed, all of creation, became infinitely more complex and perilous. The corruption was not just a localized disease, it was a systemic infection. Driven by this new understanding, Death continued his relentless quest, his path now leading him to the City of the Dead, a sprawling necropolis within the kingdom. This ancient city, once a bustling hub of spectral activity, was now a desolate ruin, its streets teeming with corrupted souls and malevolent spirits. It was here, amidst the decaying grandeur, that Death sought the second piece of the Rod of Arafel. The Rod of Arafel, a powerful artifact of ancient creation, was believed to possess the ability to unlock the Well of Souls, making its retrieval paramount to Death's mission. The City of the Dead was a gauntlet of challenges, each encounter pushing Death to his limits, but his resolve remained unbroken. He navigated the labyrinthine streets, battled countless corrupted entities, and finally, after a grueling series of trials and confrontations, recovered the second piece of the Rod. This piece, imbued with a faint, ethereal glow, resonated with the first piece he had already acquired, hinting at the immense power it would wield once fully assembled. With the second piece of the Rod of Arafel in his possession, Death knew his next destination. He had to return to the Forged Lands. Only the Makers, the ancient race of master craftsmen and builders who had forged the Rod of Arafel in ages past, possessed the knowledge and skill to reassemble the powerful artifact. The journey back to the Forged Lands was a testament to Death's unwavering determination, retracing his steps through the desolate landscapes and treacherous paths he had already conquered. He understood that the Makers, with their deep connection to creation and their unparalleled craftsmanship, were his only hope of completing the Rod and unlocking the path to the Well of Souls. His return to the Forged Lands was met with a sense of urgency, as the Makers, having witnessed the growing corruption and the unfolding cosmic crisis, understood the critical importance of Death's mission. However, the final piece of the Rod of Arafel was not simply waiting for him. It was guarded by another formidable entity, a creature born of the corruption itself. Death was forced to battle the Karkanos, a monstrous, giant, corrupted spider, its many eyes glowing with malevolent intent, its venomous fangs dripping with corrosive toxins. The Karkanos, a creature of immense size and terrifying agility, had made its lair in a dark, cavernous chamber, its web-strewn domain a testament to its predatory nature. The battle was a harrowing ordeal, Death dodging its lightning-fast attacks, severing its powerful legs, and finally, after a brutal and protracted struggle, vanquishing the corrupted arachnid. With the Karkanos defeated, Death retrieved the final piece of the Rod of Arafel, a pulsating fragment that hummed with latent energy, completing the ancient artifact. With all three pieces of the Rod of Arafel finally gathered, Death presented them to the Makers. The ancient craftsmen, with their solemn reverence for their art and their deep understanding of cosmic energies, meticulously set about forging the Rod. Their hammers rang with ancient power, their forges blazed with primal fire as they painstakingly reassembled the artifact, imbuing it with their collective wisdom and skill. The process was a mesmerizing display of craftsmanship, a testament to the Maker's mastery over creation. As the final piece clicked into place, the Rod of Arafel pulsed with a brilliant, ethereal light, its power now fully awakened. It was a magnificent weapon, a key not just to the Well of Souls, but to the very fabric of existence. With the Rod of Arafel in hand, Death now possessed the means to open the way to the Tree of Life, the next crucial step in his desperate quest to redeem his brother and restore humanity. The path was clear, but the challenges ahead remained formidable. Armed with the newly forged rod of Araphel, Death finally entered the Tree of Life, the very heart of creation. What he found, however, was a devastating sight. The once majestic and vibrant tree, a towering beacon of life and renewal, was now withered and corrupted, its immense branches gnarled and twisted, its leaves blackened and brittle. The vibrant energies that once pulsed through its bark were diminished, replaced by a sickly, greenish glow, a clear sign of the pervasive corruption that had seeped into its very core. The air within the tree was heavy with a sense of decay and despair, a stark contrast to the life-affirming aura it should have exuded. The sight was a chilling confirmation of the extent of the corruption's reach, a testament to its ability to infect even the most sacred aspects of existence. The Tree of Life, the cosmic anchor, was dying. As Death ventured deeper into the withered heart of the tree, he encountered its guardian, a powerful entity whose sole purpose was to protect this sacred nexus of life. However, this guardian, once a benevolent and formidable protector, had also fallen victim to the pervasive corruption. Its form, once majestic and pure, was now twisted and grotesque, its eyes burning with a malevolent green light, its movements jerky and unnatural. The Guardian, now a monstrous shadow of its former self, stood as the final barrier to Death's progress, its corrupted mind convinced that Death was a threat to the ailing tree. This encounter was a tragic testament to the corruption's insidious power, transforming even the most noble of beings into instruments of its destructive will. Death knew that to proceed, he would have to confront this corrupted guardian, a battle that would not only test his strength but also his resolve in the face of such profound cosmic tragedy. As Death delved deeper into the mysteries surrounding the Blight, his investigation revealed a chilling truth. The source of the corruption was not some ancient nameless evil, but a being known as Absalom, the first Nephilim. This revelation was a profound shock, for the Nephilim, the monstrous offspring of angels and demons, were believed to have been eradicated by the four horsemen themselves, a grim task that had weighed heavily on their souls for millennia. Absalom, however, had somehow survived, a testament to his immense power and perhaps a hidden resilience. His very existence defied the established history of the universe, casting a new and disturbing light on the past actions of the horsemen. Absalom, consumed by an unquenchable hatred for the Charred Council, sought nothing less than the utter destruction of all creation. His animosity stemmed from the Council's decree that led to the extermination of his kind, a genocide that Absalom viewed as an unforgivable betrayal. He perceived the Council as tyrannical overlords, their pursuit of balance a hypocritical facade for their own power and control. His survival, therefore, was not merely an act of defiance, but a deliberate, calculated move to exact vengeance on those he held responsible for the demise of his brethren. He believed that by unraveling the fabric of existence, he would not only punish the Council, but also ensure that no other race would ever suffer the same fate as the Nephilim. His methods were brutal and indiscriminate, using the very lifeblood of the universe, the Tree of Life, as his instrument of destruction, twisting its essence into the insidious corruption that plagued all realms. The gravity of Absalom's identity struck Death with a force that few things ever had. It was a horrifying realization that Absalom was none other than his own brother, the very first of the Nephilim, a figure thought long dead and buried beneath the sands of time. This personal connection transformed Death's quest from a mere mission to save his brother, War, into a deeply personal and emotionally charged confrontation. The Nephilim, as a race, were born from the forbidden union of angels and demons, a union that violated the sacred laws of the universe and threatened the delicate balance between good and evil. The Charred Council, in their infinite wisdom, had deemed the Nephilim an abomination, a chaotic force that had to be purged for the sake of universal order. It was a decree that the four horsemen, including Death, had carried out with grim determination, believing it to be a necessary evil. To discover that one of their own, a brother in blood if not in spirit, had not only survived, but had become the very embodiment of the corruption they sought to eradicate, was a bitter irony that twisted Death's already burdened soul. The weight of his past actions, the countless Nephilim he had personally slain, now bore down upon him with renewed intensity, forcing him to confront the moral ambiguities of his own history. With the truth laid bare, Death knew there was only one path left to him. He confronted Absalom within the hallowed confines of the Tree of Life, the very heart of creation, now scarred and twisted by Absalom's influence. This was not merely a battle of strength, but a clash of ideologies, a reckoning between brothers, one seeking to preserve, the other to destroy. The Tree of Life, a magnificent and ancient entity, pulsed with cosmic energy, its branches reaching into every corner of existence, its roots drawing sustenance from the well of souls. Absalom, having merged his essence with the corruption, had become a grotesque parody of his former self, his form a swirling vortex of dark energy and malevolent intent. The battle that ensued was a cataclysmic display of power, a desperate struggle for the fate of not just Earth but all realms. Death, wielding his legendary scythe, Harvester, fought with a ferocity born of desperation and a profound sense of duty. He parried Absalom's corrupted attacks, dodged his devastating magical assaults, and sought to exploit any weakness in his brother's tormented form. The very air within the Tree of Life crackled with arcane energy, the ground trembling under the force of their blows. Absalom, fueled by centuries of simmering rage and the power of the corruption, fought with a savage abandon, his every move aimed at tearing Death apart, both physically and spiritually. He taunted Death with memories of their shared past, reminding him of the Horseman's role in the Nephilim's demise, seeking to break his resolve. Yet, Death, though burdened by guilt, remained steadfast, his focus unwavering. He understood that this was not merely about personal vengeance, but about preventing the complete unmaking of creation. Ultimately, after a grueling and emotionally taxing struggle, Death defeated Absalom. The first Nephilim, his twisted form writhing in agony, finally succumbed to Death's relentless assault. With a final guttural cry of hatred and despair, Absalom's corrupted essence dissipated, leaving behind only echoes of his malevolence. However, victory was not absolute. The corruption, though deprived of its primary architect, still lingered, a pervasive blight that had seeped into the very fabric of reality. The Tree of Life, though no longer actively being consumed, remained severely damaged. Its once vibrant energy now dull and fractured. Its leaves were withered, its bark scarred, and its life-giving sap flowed sluggishly. The wounds inflicted upon it by Absalom's dark influence were deep, requiring more than just the removal of its source to heal. The pervasive nature of the corruption meant that merely defeating Absalom was insufficient to restore balance. The insidious tendrils of dark energy had spread far and wide, touching countless realms and beings, leaving behind a residue of despair and decay. The mere absence of Absalom did not automatically reverse the damage, nor did it cleanse the pervasive darkness that had taken root. It was in this moment of bittersweet triumph that Death reached a profound and agonizing realization. He understood that the only way to truly cleanse the corruption and, more importantly, to restore humanity was to make the ultimate sacrifice: himself. The solution was not to be found in brute force or cunning strategy, but in an act of selfless devotion. The corruption, he now understood, was not merely a physical ailment, but a spiritual one, a perversion of life itself. To counteract such a deep-seated blight, a sacrifice of equal magnitude was required, a life force capable of purifying the corrupted essence and reigniting the spark of creation. Humanity, the Third Kingdom, was inextricably linked to the balance of the universe. Their premature extinction, instigated by the premature arrival of war, had thrown the entire cosmic order into disarray. To bring them back, to truly clear war's name and rectify the catastrophic error, Death knew he had to offer something of unparalleled value. His own life, the life of a horseman, a being of immense power and cosmic significance, was the only offering that could possibly suffice. This realization was not born of despair, but of a grim, resolute acceptance of his destiny, a final act of devotion to his family and to the very principles of balance he had sworn to uphold. With grim determination, Death retrieved the Rod of Arafel, a powerful artifact previously used to contain the souls of the Nephilim, and activated the Well of Souls. This ancient and mystical wellspring was not merely a repository for the departed, but the very crucible of creation, a cosmic nexus where souls were purified and prepared for rebirth. It was, in essence, the counterpoint to the Tree of Life, inextricably intertwined with its very existence. The Rod of Arafel, imbued with the power to manipulate and direct souls, was the key to unlocking the Well's true potential. As Death channeled its energy, the Well of Souls began to hum with an ethereal glow, its depths swirling with incandescent light. He understood that the Well of Souls and the Tree of Life were two sides of the same coin, their energies flowing into and out of each other, forming a symbiotic relationship that sustained all life. By activating the Well in this manner, he was not merely releasing souls, but initiating a profound cosmic event, a recalibration of the very forces of creation. The act was fraught with immense peril, for tampering with such fundamental forces could have unforeseen and devastating consequences. Yet, Death, with his resolve hardened by the weight of his mission, did not waver. In a final, decisive act, Death sacrificed himself by plunging into the Well of Souls. His powerful form, a being of immense cosmic energy, dissolved into a torrent of pure spiritual essence, merging with the countless souls within the well. This extraordinary act was the catalyst, the ultimate purification. As his essence combined with the well's power, it unleashed a wave of pure, unadulterated life force. This surge of energy served a dual purpose. It cleansed the lingering corruption that still clung to the realms, and it released the souls of humanity, setting them free from their premature imprisonment. The release was not a chaotic explosion of spirits, but a guided, purposeful outpouring, directed by Death's final will. The souls, once trapped and dormant, now surged forth, clean and vibrant, ready for their rebirth on Earth. Death's sacrifice was a cosmic reset button, a profound act of restorative justice that rectified the imbalance caused by the premature apocalypse. It was an act of ultimate selflessness, a testament to his unwavering commitment to his oath and his profound love for his brother, War. His consciousness, his very being, was subsumed into the well, becoming one with the fundamental forces of life and death, ensuring that the cycle of existence could continue. His sacrifice bore immediate and profound consequences. The souls of humanity, now purified and freed, began their journey back to Earth, allowing them to be reborn and effectively clearing War's name. The premature end of humanity had been the primary charge against War, the reason for his unjust imprisonment and the subsequent unleashing of the apocalypse. With humanity's return, the very foundation of the Charred Council's accusation crumbled. The balance, so violently disrupted, began to slowly, painstakingly reassert itself. The return of humanity was not merely a symbolic gesture, it was a fundamental shift in the cosmic order, a re-establishment of the Third Kingdom's vital role in the grand tapestry of creation. This act of rebirth was a direct result of Death's deliberate choice, a testament to his understanding of the intricate workings of the universe and his willingness to pay the ultimate price for its restoration. The very fabric of reality, which had been stretched and torn by the premature apocalypse, began to mend, its wounds slowly closing as the life force of humanity flowed back into existence. Simultaneously, the Charred Council, those ancient and powerful entities who governed the balance of the universe, sensed the momentous shift. They felt the return of humanity, a profound disturbance in the cosmic equilibrium that signaled a realignment of forces. More significantly, they sensed the release of War, their prisoner, now free from the shackles of their judgment. The Council, with their vast and incomprehensible powers, were acutely attuned to the ebb and flow of cosmic energies. The sudden influx of human souls, coupled with the abrupt absence of Death's formidable presence, sent ripples through their collective consciousness. They understood, with a chilling certainty, that something extraordinary had transpired, something that defied their carefully constructed order. The very ground upon which their accusations against War rested had been swept away. Their authority, though still immense, had been subtly undermined by an act of profound self-sacrifice that transcended their rigid adherence to rules and decrees. The implications were vast, signaling a new and unpredictable chapter in the ongoing saga of creation. On Earth, amidst the desolation and ruin of the premature apocalypse, War, now free from the Charred Council's imprisonment, experienced a profound and unsettling event. He saw the return of the other horsemen, though not in their physical forms, but as ethereal, spectral presences, their arrival signaling the true beginning of the apocalypse. This was the moment of reckoning, the fulfillment of prophecy, the convergence of forces that would determine the fate of all realms. Death's sacrifice had not only freed War, but had also initiated the true, prophesied apocalypse, the one that was meant to happen, with all four horsemen present. The spectral figures of Death, Fury, and Strife appeared before War, their forms shimmering with an otherworldly glow, their presence a silent acknowledgement of the events that had transpired. This was not a reunion of friends, but a gathering of cosmic executioners, ready to fulfill their grim duty. The stage was set for the true, cataclysmic war, a conflict that would pit the forces of heaven against the forces of hell, with humanity caught in the crossfire and the horsemen as the arbiters of its ultimate fate. War understood, with a chilling certainty, that his personal quest for vengeance had now intertwined with a far grander, more terrifying destiny. The Crow Father, that ancient and enigmatic guardian of secrets, having witnessed Death's selfless sacrifice from his vantage point across the realms, acknowledged his success. His cryptic pronouncements and prophecies had hinted at this very outcome, at the profound act required to restore balance. He understood the immense weight of Death's choice, the courage it took to embrace such a destiny. The Crow Father, a being of vast knowledge and foresight, had long observed the unfolding events, knowing that the path to redemption for the Horsemen would be paved with immense sacrifice. Death's plunge into the Well of Souls was the culmination of a journey fraught with peril, a testament to his unwavering commitment to his brother and to the delicate balance of creation. The Crow Father's acknowledgement was not a simple nod of approval, but a profound recognition of Death's triumph over despair, his willingness to transcend his own nature for the greater good. It was a silent testament to the fact that even the most grim and unyielding of beings could find redemption through selfless love and sacrifice. In the aftermath of Death's sacrifice, the realms, though still bearing the scars of the corruption, began to slowly recover. The insidious blight that had threatened to consume all existence began to recede, its malevolent grip loosening. The Tree of Life, though still wounded, began to slowly mend, its vital energies gradually returning, its branches once again reaching towards the cosmos with renewed vigor. The very air, once thick with despair, now carried a faint whisper of hope. The effects were not instantaneous. The wounds inflicted by Absalom and the corruption were deep, requiring time and patience to heal fully. But the tide had turned. The pervasive sense of decay and rot began to dissipate, replaced by a subtle resurgence of life and growth. Death's sacrifice had ensured the balance of creation, at least for a time, fulfilling his arduous quest. He had not only saved his brother, War, from an unjust fate, but had also prevented the complete unraveling of the universe. His journey, from a desperate plea for justice to a profound act of self-sacrifice, had come full circle, leaving an indelible mark on the tapestry of existence. The universe, though forever changed by the events of the premature apocalypse, had been given a second chance, a fragile opportunity to rebuild and restore what was lost. all thanks to the unwavering resolve and ultimate sacrifice of death, the Pale Rider. His name, once synonymous with destruction, now resonated with the profound echo of redemption and rebirth. The cataclysmic events of the premature apocalypse, detailed in our previous segments, had shattered the delicate balance of the universe, with the Third Kingdom, humanity, caught in the crossfire between heaven and hell, teetering on the brink of utter annihilation. The cosmic arbiters of order, the Charred Council, found themselves in a precarious position. Their preemptive intervention, dispatching war to Earth, had inadvertently exacerbated the chaos, leading to the imprisonment of the Horsemen and a deepening of the cosmic imbalance. It is against this backdrop of universal upheaval, concurrent with war's imprisonment and death's quest to resurrect humanity, that our next chapter unfolds. We now turn our attention to the Darksiders III era, a period inextricably linked to the events of Darksiders Berlin and Darksiders II, occurring simultaneously during the very apocalypse itself. As war languished in chains and death traversed the realms seeking a means to restore the human race, another horseman was unleashed upon the ravaged earth. The Charred Council, ever wary of further destabilization and perhaps seeking to rectify their prior misjudgment, determined that a new threat had emerged, one that demanded immediate and decisive action. The premature apocalypse, by its very nature, had not only brought about the war between angels and demons, but had also inadvertently empowered a darker, more insidious force, the Seven Deadly Sins. These primordial entities, manifestations of humanity's deepest vices, had been unleashed upon the world, feeding on the chaos and despair, and threatening to plunge the cosmos into an even deeper abyss. Fearing the sins' growing power and their potential to completely unravel the fabric of creation, the Council, in their infinite, often self-serving wisdom, dispatched their most volatile and unpredictable agent, Fury. Her mission was stark, brutal, and seemingly straightforward: hunt down and eliminate each of the seven deadly sins. Fury, the horseman of the apocalypse, was a force unto herself, a being forged in fire and fury, embodying the very essence of her name. Introduced to us as an individual brimming with a fierce, almost unbridled arrogance, she was driven by an insatiable desire to prove herself. Unlike her brothers, War and Death, whose stoicism and grim determination often masked deeper, more complex motivations, Fury wore her ambition on her sleeve. She viewed herself as superior, not only in skill, but in unwavering loyalty to the Council, and she yearned for an opportunity to demonstrate this superiority, to eclipse the perceived failings of war and the detached pragmatism of death. Her initial interactions with the Council, portrayed in the game's opening sequences, reveal a horseman eager for the hunt, almost relishing the prospect of battle, and utterly convinced of her own righteousness and the clarity of her mission. She saw the sins as a challenge, an opportunity to showcase her prowess and solidify her standing as the most formidable of the horsemen. This unwavering self-belief, however, was also a significant vulnerability, a blind spot that the Council, and indeed the sins themselves, would exploit. To ensure Fury remained on task and, perhaps more tellingly, to monitor her volatile temperament, the Council provided her with a constant companion, a Watcher. This entity, a recurring fixture in the Darksiders universe, serves as both a guide and a tether, bound to the Horsemen by the Council's will. Unlike the Watcher assigned to War, whose initial role was more overtly antagonistic and manipulative, Fury's Watcher was characterized by a distinct brand of snarky, often condescending criticism. Tasked with monitoring her progress, offering cryptic advice, and subtly steering her actions, the Watcher was a constant irritant, a voice of doubt and judgment that chipped away at Fury's already fragile patience. This particular Watcher, however, was not directly assigned by the Council, but rather provided through the Lord of Hollows, a mysterious and ancient entity who held sway over a hidden realm and possessed knowledge that even the Council lacked. This subtle distinction hinted at a deeper, more intricate web of manipulation than Fury initially comprehended, a web woven by forces beyond the Council's immediate control. The Watcher's constant barbs and thinly veiled disapproval were designed not just to keep Fury focused, but, perhaps, to subtly undermine her confidence, to sow seeds of doubt about her mission and the Council's true intentions, preparing her for a truth she was not yet ready to confront. As Fury descended to Earth, the landscape that greeted her was one of utter devastation. The once vibrant planet, the cradle of humanity, had been transformed into a desolate wasteland, a testament to the brutal conflict that had raged across its surface. Skyscrapers lay in twisted ruins, their skeletal remains piercing the perpetually overcast sky. The very ground was scarred, cratered, and choked with the remnants of war, a grim tapestry woven from the ashes of civilization. This was no longer the Earth that war had encountered at the beginning of the apocalypse. It was an even further degraded realm, a world where the lines between demonic corruption and angelic zealotry had blurred into a horrifying new reality. Demons, grotesque and malevolent, roamed freely, their forms twisted by the energies of the conflict. But it wasn't just infernal creatures that infested the land. Corrupted angels, their once divine forms warped by fanaticism and the influence of the sins, also stalked the ruins, adding another layer of danger and moral ambiguity to Fury's mission. This ravaged Earth served as a crucible, a testing ground where Fury would be forced to confront not only the sins but also her own deeply ingrained prejudices. Her initial encounter with the sins was both immediate and profound. Almost upon her arrival, Fury came face to face with Envy, the first of the 7 deadly sins she was tasked with eliminating. Envy, a creature of serpentine grace and venomous wit, embodied the very essence of its namesake. It taunted Fury with cutting remarks, preying on her insecurities, particularly her desire to prove herself superior to her brothers. Envy's words were not merely insults, they were carefully crafted provocations, designed to sow discord and doubt. It hinted at the Council's true intentions, suggesting that Fury was merely a pawn in a larger, more cynical game, a tool to be wielded and discarded. Envy's insinuation that Fury was perceived as weak by the Council, a mere instrument for their bidding, struck a raw nerve, fueling her already considerable anger and hardening her resolve to prove her tormentor wrong. This initial confrontation set the tone for Fury's journey, revealing that the sins were not merely monstrous beasts to be slain, but intelligent, manipulative entities capable of exploiting the deepest flaws of their adversaries. As Fury traversed the ruins of Earth, her path was paved with relentless combat. She battled a myriad of demonic creatures, from hulking brutes to agile, winged fiends, each encounter pushing her to hone her formidable combat skills. Her weapon of choice, the barbs of scorn, a whip-like chain, became an extension of her will, lashing out with devastating precision. But it wasn't just demons she faced. Corrupted humans, twisted by the apocalypse's influence and driven to madness, also stood in her way, adding a tragic dimension to the conflict. These encounters, while often brutal, served a crucial purpose. They forced Fury to adapt, to evolve her fighting style, and to master the unique abilities imbued within her by her status as a horseman. Central to her combat prowess were her elemental forms, distinct transformations that granted her access to different powers and combat styles. Her Flame Hollow, for instance, allowed her to unleash fiery attacks and navigate environmental hazards, while her Storm Hollow granted her electrical abilities and the power of levitation. Each new encounter, each vanquished foe, brought her closer to unlocking the full potential of these elemental forms, progressively transforming her from a raw, arrogant warrior into a more versatile and formidable force. Amidst the desolation, Fury stumbled upon a beacon of hope, a testament to humanity's enduring spirit, the Haven. This sanctuary, hidden amongst the ruins, served as a refuge for the last surviving humans, a desperate attempt to preserve their species in the face of overwhelming odds. The Haven was a testament to ingenuity and resilience, a place where the remnants of civilization clung to life. It was here that Fury encountered Ulthane, the Maker, a gruff but benevolent giant from an ancient race known for their craftsmanship and their deep connection to the creation of powerful artifacts. Ulthane, a recurring character in the Darksiders universe, had taken it upon himself to protect these last vestiges of humanity, offering them shelter and his formidable skills as a smith. His presence in the Haven was a significant deviation from his usual solitary existence, highlighting the extreme circumstances of the apocalypse and the desperate need for allies. Fury's initial reaction to the humans in the Haven was one of profound disdain. Raised in the austere, uncompromising environment of the Charred Council and focused solely on her mission, she viewed humanity as weak, fragile, and utterly irrelevant to the grand cosmic struggle. Their suffering, their vulnerability, registered as little more than an inconvenience, a distraction from her primary objective. She saw them as an obstacle, a drain on resources, and a pathetic representation of the Third Kingdom that had so spectacularly failed to uphold its end of the cosmic balance. This initial coldness reflected her ingrained prejudice and her narrow-minded focus, a stark contrast to the burgeoning empathy that would begin to develop later in her journey. She dismissed their plight, their struggles, and their very existence as inconsequential to the larger narrative of the apocalypse and her own personal quest for glory. However, as Fury delved deeper into her mission, she began to uncover a truth that challenged her preconceived notions. The sins, she learned, were not merely individual demons to be vanquished. They were something far more insidious. They were manifestations of humanity's deepest vices, personifications of the very flaws that had led to the premature apocalypse. Empowered by the chaos and despair of the ongoing conflict, these sins fed on the moral decay of the world, growing stronger with each act of avarice, each surge of envy, each flicker of lust. This revelation was a pivotal moment for Fury, forcing her to confront the uncomfortable truth that humanity, the very species she initially dismissed as irrelevant, was inextricably linked to the power of her adversaries. The sins were not external invaders. They were reflections of the human soul, distorted and magnified by the cataclysm. This understanding began to chip away at her arrogance, introducing a subtle layer of complexity to her black and white worldview. Her quest led her to avarice, the sin of insatiable greed, who had amassed a vast hoard of treasures within a sprawling, labyrinthine fortress. Avarice, a grotesque, multi-limbed creature adorned with countless stolen riches, represented the ultimate embodiment of materialism and selfish acquisition. His domain was a testament to his vice, a cavernous space overflowing with gold, jewels, and artifacts plundered from across the realms. The battle with Avarice was a test of Fury's agility and strategic thinking, as she navigated his treasure-laden lair, dodging his powerful attacks and exploiting his vulnerabilities. Upon her eventual victory, Fury not only vanquished the Sin, but also claimed a powerful artifact from his hoard, a relic imbued with unique properties that further enhanced her abilities. This acquisition was not merely a trophy, it represented a tangible step forward in her mission, a concrete gain that solidified her growing power and effectiveness. Yet, even as she achieved victories, a nagging doubt began to fester within Fury. The Council's motives, once seemingly clear and righteous, started to appear increasingly opaque. The Watcher's constant criticisms, initially dismissed as mere annoyances, began to resonate with a deeper, more unsettling truth. Fury, despite her arrogance, was not entirely devoid of intuition, and she sensed a deeper manipulation at play, a grander scheme orchestrated by forces beyond her immediate comprehension. The Council's pronouncements, their unwavering insistence on her mission, and the Watcher's carefully chosen words all contributed to a growing unease, a feeling that she was being used as a pawn in a game whose rules she did not fully understand. This nascent skepticism marked a crucial turning point in her character development, signaling a departure from her blind obedience and a nascent desire to seek out the truth for herself. Her journey continued, leading her to confront lust, the sin of insatiable desire. Lust, a seductive and manipulative entity, presented a different kind of challenge. Unlike the brute force of avarice or the venomous taunts of envy, lust attempted to corrupt Fury with promises of power, pleasure, and ultimate control. It preyed on her hidden desires, her ambition, and her yearning for recognition, whispering temptations that sought to turn her from her path. The encounter with lust was not just a physical battle, but a psychological one, forcing Fury to confront her own inner demons and resist the allure of forbidden desires. It was a test of her willpower, her resolve, and her commitment to her mission. Despite the seductive power of lust's temptations, Fury ultimately prevailed. Her unwavering focus, tempered by the growing doubts about the Council, allowed her to resist the Sin's corrupting influence. The battle with lust was a brutal affair, forcing Fury to unleash the full extent of her elemental powers, transforming between her various hollows to counter lust's deceptive tactics. Her victory over lust further solidified her resolve, not just against the Sins, but also against the insidious manipulations that seemed to permeate her entire mission. Each vanquished sin, each resisted temptation, strengthened her, not just physically, but mentally, hardening her against external influences and sharpening her nascent sense of self-determination. As Fury continued her relentless pursuit of the Sins, she was increasingly confronted with the suffering of the humans. No longer able to dismiss them as irrelevant, she witnessed firsthand their resilience, their courage in the face of overwhelming despair, and their unwavering will to survive. She saw their fear, their pain, but also their flashes of hope, their acts of kindness, and their surprising capacity for endurance. These observations, initially met with disdain, slowly began to chip away at her hardened exterior. A grudging respect, a nascent empathy, began to take root within her. The humans, once seen as mere obstacles, were now viewed through a slightly different lens, not as insignificant pawns, but as beings capable of remarkable strength. This gradual shift in perspective was a crucial step in Fury's evolution, moving her away from her initial arrogance and towards a more nuanced understanding of the world and her place within it. It was a subtle but profound transformation, laying the groundwork for the deeper revelations and challenges that awaited her. As Fury continues her relentless hunt for the 7 deadly sins, her path leads her to a mysterious and enigmatic entity known only as the Lord of Hollows. This ancient being, residing within a hidden sanctuary, possesses an unparalleled understanding of the world's intricate magical energies and the delicate balance of creation. The Lord of Hollows is a pivotal figure in Fury's journey, not merely as a source of information, but as a provider of crucial upgrades for her formidable weapons. With each sin defeated, Fury brings a portion of their essence to the Lord of Hollows, who, through arcane rituals and profound knowledge, imbues her whip, scorn, and her various hollow forms with enhanced abilities. These upgrades are not superficial. They fundamentally alter Fury's combat style, granting her access to new elemental powers and movement capabilities, essential for overcoming the increasingly challenging sins. The Lord of Hollows' role extends beyond mere blacksmithing, however. It becomes a cryptic guide, offering fragmented prophecies and veiled warnings that slowly begin to unravel the true nature of the apocalypse and the forces at play. It is during these encounters that the Lord of Hollows reveals a shocking truth to Fury. The sins were not unleashed by accident or as a direct consequence of the apocalypse. Instead, they were intentionally released by a higher power, a shadowy consortium of entities with a specific and as yet unknown purpose. This revelation shakes Fury's understanding of her mission to its core. She had believed herself to be a righteous instrument of balance, restoring order to a chaotic world. Now, she learns that she might be a pawn in a larger, more sinister game, a tool wielded by unseen hands. The Lord of Hollows speaks of an ancient prophecy, of a grand design, and of the sins being merely instruments in a cosmic orchestration. This knowledge plants the first seeds of doubt in Fury's mind, a nascent suspicion that her masters, the Charred Council, might not be as benevolent as they seem. Her next target is gluttony, a monstrous sin that embodies insatiable hunger and endless consumption. Gluttony has taken root in a vast subterranean cavern system, transforming it into a grotesque ecosystem of its own. The creature is a horrifying amalgamation of tentacles, teeth, and gaping maws, constantly devouring everything in its path, from the crumbling remnants of human civilization to the very earth itself. Confronting gluttony is a test of Fury's agility and strategic thinking. The battle takes place amidst treacherous platforms and acidic pools, with gluttony's massive form lunging and snapping, attempting to swallow Fury whole. She must exploit its vulnerabilities, dodging its attacks and striking at its exposed organs, all while navigating the perilous environment. The fight is a brutal, drawn-out affair, a testament to gluttony's immense power and Fury's unwavering determination. Ultimately, Fury triumphs, impaling the colossal beast and witnessing its grotesque form dissolve into a torrent of corrupted energy. The defeat of gluttony, while a victory, leaves Fury with a profound sense of unease. The sheer scale of the sin's power and the destructive potential they represent reinforces the Lord of Hollows' earlier warnings. Following gluttony's demise, the Lord of Hollows provides further insights, revealing a crucial aspect of the sin's nature. They are interconnected. Their defeat is not merely the vanquishing of individual threats, but a weakening of a larger, overarching entity. This entity, the Lord of Hollows explains, is not a single being, but a manifestation of the collective corruption and imbalance that has permeated existence. Each defeated sin contributes to the unraveling of this greater force, bringing the true orchestrator of the apocalypse closer to exposure. This revelation adds another layer of complexity to Fury's mission. She is no longer just hunting individual monsters, she is dismantling a complex, interwoven system of malevolence. The Lord of Hollows hints at a hidden puppet master, a manipulator pulling the strings from the shadows, and that the sins are merely extensions of its will. As Fury continues her hunt, she begins to piece together the fragments of truth she has gathered. The Lord of Hollows' cryptic pronouncements, combined with the unsettling power of the sins, led her to a chilling realization. The Charred Council, her supposed masters, have been using the Horsemen as pawns in their own power struggles. The Council, a bureaucratic and often self-serving entity, has a long history of manipulating events and individuals to maintain its own authority and influence over the cosmic balance. Fury understands that the apocalypse itself and the subsequent unleashing of the sins might have been orchestrated or at least allowed to happen by the Council to serve their own agenda. This realization fuels a simmering resentment within Fury, a growing distrust of the very institution she has sworn to serve. Her brothers, War and Death, have also been subjected to the Council's machinations, and Fury now sees their individual predicaments in a new, more cynical light. The Council's cold indifference to the suffering of humanity and their willingness to sacrifice countless lives for their own perceived greater good becomes increasingly apparent, eroding Fury's loyalty. Her journey then leads her to confront Wrath, a powerful and aggressive sin embodying pure, unadulterated rage. Wrath has taken over a fortified human settlement, transforming it into a chaotic battlefield where its corrupted minions endlessly clash with the desperate remnants of humanity. Wrath itself is a formidable warrior, clad in heavy armor and wielding a massive fiery weapon. Its attacks are relentless and devastating, fueled by an insatiable fury. The battle with Wrath is a brutal, close-quarters engagement, a true test of Fury's combat prowess. She must parry, dodge, and counter with precision, exploiting Wrath's moments of vulnerability while enduring its overwhelming assaults. The environment itself becomes a weapon, with crumbling structures and explosive hazards adding to the chaos of the fight. During her intense battle with Wrath, Fury experiences a series of vivid and disorienting visions. These are not mere flashbacks, but powerful, almost prophetic glimpses into her past and the shared destiny of her brothers. She sees fragmented images of War, unjustly imprisoned and condemned by the Council. She witnesses Death, embarking on his own perilous quest to clear War's name and uncover the truth behind the apocalypse. These visions are not just memories. They are infused with a profound sense of connection, a shared burden, and a powerful, unspoken bond that transcends their individual paths. Fury sees the weight of their collective responsibility, the sacrifices they have made, and the immense power they wield as the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. The visions serve as a stark reminder that despite their individual missions, their fates are intricately intertwined. They hint at a future where their paths will converge, where they will stand together against a common, greater enemy. This experience deepens Fury's understanding of her own identity and her place within the grand scheme of things, solidifying her resolve to uncover the truth and protect her brothers. The visions also subtly reinforce the Lord of Hollows' earlier suggestions about a larger unseen force at play, hinting that the Horsemen themselves are integral to its machinations. Fury ultimately defeats Wrath, a hard-won victory that leaves her physically and emotionally drained. As the sin dissipates, the Watcher, the enigmatic entity assigned by the Council to monitor Fury, continues to sow seeds of doubt. The Watcher, a creature of pure energy and cunning, constantly whispers in Fury's ear, questioning her methods, her motivations, and the very legitimacy of her mission. It reminds her of her duty to the Council, subtly attempting to steer her back towards blind obedience. The Watcher's insidious influence is a constant psychological battle for Fury, a relentless assault on her convictions. It highlights the Council's perceived wisdom, their unwavering authority, and the supposed chaos that would ensue if Fury were to deviate from their path. The Watcher's words, though seemingly intended to guide her, only serve to deepen Fury's suspicion, reinforcing her growing belief that the Council has ulterior motives. Its constant presence is a reminder of the Council's pervasive reach and their determination to control every aspect of the Horsemen's actions. Following the intense confrontation with Wrath, Fury returns to the Haven, a sanctuary for the last remnants of humanity. Here, amidst the crumbling ruins and desperate survivors, she witnesses firsthand the profound struggle for survival. She sees their resilience, their courage, and their unwavering hope in the face of unimaginable adversity. The humans, once seen as mere collateral damage in the cosmic war, now appear to Fury in a new light. Their suffering is palpable, their determination inspiring. This experience deepens Fury's empathy, a quality she rarely allowed herself to acknowledge before. She begins to question the Council's cold indifference to humanity's plight, their willingness to sacrifice entire civilizations for the sake of balance. The Haven becomes a poignant reminder of what is truly at stake, a tangible representation of the innocent lives caught in the crossfire. This newfound empathy further fuels her growing distrust of the Council and strengthens her resolve to protect the innocent, even if it means defying her masters. The stark contrast between the Council's detached pronouncements and the raw, visceral reality of human suffering weighs heavily on her. Her next target is Sloth, a cunning and evasive sin that embodies apathy and despair. Sloth has established its domain in a realm of stagnant water and decaying ruins, a place where time seems to slow to a crawl. The sin itself is a grotesque, corpulent creature perpetually lounging and exuding an aura of profound weariness. Sloth does not engage in direct combat, but instead employs psychological warfare, attempting to wear Fury down with apathy and despair. It whispers insidious doubts, preying on her fears and uncertainties, urging her to abandon her mission and succumb to the overwhelming futility of it all. Sloth's attacks are subtle, insidious, and far more dangerous than any physical blow. It tries to convince Fury that her efforts are meaningless, that the world is beyond saving, and that resistance is futile. The fight against Sloth is a battle of wills, a test of Fury's mental fortitude and her unwavering determination. She must resist the urge to succumb to its insidious influence, to push through the overwhelming sense of hopelessness it projects. Fury ultimately overcomes Sloth's psychological attacks, her resolve strengthening with each insidious whisper she resists. She confronts the sin, not with brute force, but with a renewed sense of purpose and an unyielding will. She defeats Sloth not by destroying its physical form, but by shattering its psychological grip, forcing it to confront its own emptiness. The defeat of Sloth marks a significant turning point in Fury's journey. She emerges from the encounter not only victorious but also stronger in her resolve, more confident in her purpose, and more attuned to her own inner strength. The experience reinforces her belief that true power lies not just in physical might, but in the unwavering conviction of one's spirit. She has faced her own doubts and emerged victorious, solidifying her commitment to uncover the truth and protect those who cannot protect themselves. The victory over Sloth is a personal triumph, demonstrating her growth beyond a mere instrument of destruction into a more complex and empathetic being. It is after these encounters that Fury learns a profound truth about the sins. They are not truly evil in and of themselves, but are being controlled and amplified by a greater force. The Lord of Hollows, through further cryptic pronouncements in ancient lore, reveals that the sins are not inherently malicious entities, but rather manifestations of primal emotions and destructive energies that have been corrupted and weaponized. They are puppets, not puppet masters, their immense power merely a reflection of the will of a more insidious entity. This revelation reshapes Fury's understanding of her entire mission. She realizes that simply eliminating the sins is not enough. She must uncover and confront the true source of their corruption, the entity that has twisted these fundamental aspects of existence for its own nefarious purposes. The Lord of Hollows speaks of an ancient evil, a being of immense power and malevolence that has been manipulating events from the shadows, orchestrating the apocalypse for its own gain. This leads Fury to the most shocking discovery of all. The true mastermind behind the apocalypse is not the Destroyer, the demon lord who initiated the conflict, but a different, far more insidious entity. The Destroyer, Fury learns, was merely a pawn, a blunt instrument wielded by a far more cunning and powerful being. This entity, whose name is whispered with fear even by the Lord of Hollows, is a master of manipulation, a being capable of twisting reality and corrupting even the purest of intentions. It is a force that has been at play for millennia, subtly influencing events, sowing discord, and orchestrating the grand cosmic tragedy that is the apocalypse. Fury realizes that her entire understanding of the conflict has been a carefully constructed lie, a smokescreen designed to obscure the true enemy. The revelation is a seismic shift in her perspective. forcing her to reevaluate everything she thought she knew about the war between heaven and hell and the role of the Charred Council within it. The true enemy is not a demon, but something far older, far more subtle, and far more dangerous. In a final, shocking twist, the Watcher, the enigmatic entity that has been Fury's constant companion and tormentor, reveals its true nature. It is not merely a monitor or guide, but a loyal servant of the Charred Council, specifically tasked with ensuring Fury's obedience. The Watcher's constant whispers, its subtle manipulations, and its attempts to sow doubt were all part of a calculated strategy to keep Fury on the Council's leash. Its purpose was to prevent her from questioning their authority, from straying from their predetermined path, and from discovering the truth about their machinations. The Watcher's revelation is a betrayal, a final confirmation of Fury's deepest suspicions. It exposes the extent of the Council's control and their willingness to deceive even their most loyal agents. Fury now understands that she has been manipulated from the very beginning, a pawn in a game far larger and more sinister than she could have ever imagined. The Watcher's true nature is a bitter pill to swallow, but it also solidifies Fury's resolve. She is no longer a blind instrument of the Council. She is an independent force, determined to uncover the truth and forge her own path, even if it means defying her former masters. The Watcher's confession is the final piece of the puzzle, confirming the Council's duplicity and their willingness to sacrifice everything and everyone to maintain their power. As Fury continues her relentless hunt for the remaining sins, her path once again crosses with envy, the manipulative and insidious sin of jealousy. This encounter, however, is far from a simple battle. Envy, ever the schemer, chooses this moment to unveil a truth so profound it shatters Fury's understanding of the entire apocalypse. With a venomous smirk, Envy reveals that the Charred Council, the very entity Fury has served with unwavering loyalty, orchestrated the cataclysmic events that brought about the end of days. This revelation is a calculated strike designed to destabilize Fury and sow seeds of doubt, but its impact is far greater than Envy could have anticipated. Envy elaborates on this horrifying conspiracy, explaining that the sins themselves were not merely rogue elements to be contained. Instead, they were instruments, tools in the Council's grand design. Their purpose was to weaken humanity, to sow chaos and despair, and to ultimately prepare Earth for the Council's ultimate takeover. The apocalypse, therefore, was not an accidental consequence of broken seals, but a carefully orchestrated plan to eliminate humanity, the Third Kingdom, and consolidate the Council's power across all realms. This information is a betrayal of the highest order, a direct assault on everything Fury believed to be true about her mission and her masters. The weight of this deception presses down on her, the years of unquestioning service now tainted by the knowledge of her unwitting participation in such a heinous plot. Fury, a being forged in the fires of discipline and loyalty, is absolutely enraged by this deception. The cold fury that has always simmered beneath her surface now erupts into a volcanic inferno. Her entire existence, her purpose, her very identity as a horseman, has been built on a foundation of lies. The Council, whom she revered as arbiters of balance, are revealed as ruthless tyrants, willing to sacrifice an entire kingdom for their own aggrandizement. This realization fuels a final climactic confrontation with Envy. This is no longer just about fulfilling her duty. It is about vengeance, about justice, and about reclaiming her own agency. The battle is a maelstrom of elemental power and raw emotion, each strike imbued with Fury's newfound understanding and burning indignation. Envy, for all her cunning, is ultimately no match for a horseman unleashed, driven by the purest form of righteous fury. As Fury, exhausted but victorious, stands over the defeated form of Envy, the Watcher, her ever-present companion and the Council's direct tether, attempts to intervene. Up until this point, the Watcher has been a constant, if irritating, presence, offering guidance and threats in equal measure. But now, with Fury on the precipice of a complete break from the Council, the Watcher reveals its true power, its form shifting, its voice booming with an authority it previously only hinted at. It is a desperate attempt by the Council to reassert control, to bring their wayward horsemen back into line. The Watcher, a creature of immense power and a direct manifestation of the Council's will, attempts to physically restrain Fury, to subdue her and force her back onto the path they prescribed. It is a moment of profound tension, as the fate of Fury's allegiance hangs in the balance. However, Fury has grown beyond the Council's control. The revelations from Envy, coupled with her own experiences on a devastated Earth, have transformed her from a loyal weapon into a being capable of independent thought and moral judgment. With a defiant roar, she turns her attention to the Watcher, seeing it not as a guide, but as an embodiment of the very manipulation she now despises. In a stunning display of her newfound strength and resolve, Fury destroys the Watcher, severing her ties to the Council's manipulation once and for all. This act is not merely a physical triumph, it is a symbolic declaration of independence, a definitive break from the shackles of her past. She is no longer merely an instrument of the Council. She is a free agent, a horseman who will forge her own destiny. The destruction of the Watcher is a point of no return, a public renunciation of the Council's authority that will undoubtedly have severe repercussions. With the Watcher gone and the full scope of Envy's confessions sinking in, Fury fully comprehends the true mastermind behind the apocalypse. It is not some external entity, some rogue demon lord, but the Charred Council itself. Their motivations are clear: to eliminate humanity, the Third Kingdom, whose very existence threatened the delicate balance of power they sought to maintain. By orchestrating the breaking of the seals and unleashing the sins, they intended to wipe out humanity and then step in as the ultimate arbiters, solidifying their dominance over all realms. The Horsemen, including Fury, were merely pawns in this grand, malevolent game, sent to clean up the mess the Council itself had created. This realization is a bitter pill to swallow, a betrayal that cuts deeper than any physical wound. Faced with this horrifying truth, Fury makes a pivotal decision, one that defines her transformation from a loyal servant to a true guardian. She chooses to protect the remaining humans, defying the Council's orders and embracing her own moral compass. Her mission, once dictated by external authority, now stems from an intrinsic sense of justice and compassion. She recognizes the inherent innocence of humanity, caught in a conflict not of their making, and she refuses to be an accomplice in their destruction. This choice marks a profound shift in her character, moving her beyond the rigid dogma of the Council and towards a more nuanced understanding of balance. She is no longer simply an enforcer. She is a protector. With her new purpose firmly established, Fury rallies the scattered remnants of humanity. She finds them huddled in various enclaves, most notably in the Haven, a sanctuary established by Ulthane, the Ancient Maker. Fury, with her imposing presence and newfound conviction, inspires hope in these desperate survivors. She begins to prepare them for a final stand against the Council's forces, knowing that her defiance will not go unpunished. Her training methods are harsh but effective, transforming frightened civilians into a resilient fighting force. She teaches them how to defend themselves, how to utilize their limited resources, and how to fight for their very survival. This alliance between a horseman and humanity is unprecedented, a direct challenge to the established order of the universe. As predicted, the Council's wrath descends upon Earth in the form of a massive demonic assault, targeting the Haven. Fury, alongside Ulthane and the newly trained humans, stands firm against the onslaught. This battle is not just about survival. It is a declaration of defiance, a testament to Fury's unwavering commitment to her chosen path. The fight is brutal, a testament to the sheer power of the demonic legions, but Fury's leadership and the humans' newfound courage prove to be a formidable combination. Ulthane, with his immense strength and knowledge of weaponry, becomes a crucial ally, forging defenses and fighting alongside Fury. This joint effort, a horseman fighting side by side with the very being she was sent to eradicate, is a powerful symbol of the changing tides. In the midst of the chaos, or perhaps in a brief respite, Fury sends a crucial message to her brothers: war and death. This message is cryptic, hinting at the Council's treachery and the true nature of the apocalypse. She knows that direct communication is dangerous, but she trusts her brothers to understand the underlying meaning of her words. She wants them to be aware of the Council's manipulation, to question their own allegiances, and to understand that the war they are fighting is not what it seems. This message is a seed of doubt planted in the minds of her powerful siblings, a precursor to the eventual confrontation with the Council that she knows is inevitable. Having fully embraced her role as a protector, Fury establishes herself as a guardian of humanity. She no longer serves the Council. She serves a higher purpose, one born of her own moral compass and her desire for true balance. She is a beacon of hope for the surviving humans, a symbol of resistance against the tyrannical Council. Her actions carve a new path for the Horsemen, one independent of the Council's dictates. She demonstrates that the Horsemen are not merely instruments of destruction, but potential forces for good, capable of choosing their own allegiances and fighting for what they believe in. Fury understands that her actions will have severe consequences. By defying the Council and destroying the Watcher, she has effectively declared war on the most powerful entity in the universe. She knows that an inevitable confrontation awaits, a battle that will determine the fate of humanity and potentially the entire cosmos. But she is prepared. Her journey has transformed her from a volatile, obedient weapon into a true horseman, not just a force of destruction, but a guardian of balance, a protector of the innocent, and a champion of free will. The fate of humanity and the Horsemen remains uncertain. The Council, enraged by Fury's defiance, will undoubtedly unleash their full might. The stage is set for future conflicts, for a war that will pit the Horsemen against their former masters, and humanity against the forces that seek to eradicate them. Fury's actions have irrevocably altered the trajectory of the Darksiders timeline, ushering in an era of open rebellion and a desperate fight for survival against a truly formidable, and now exposed, enemy. The future is fraught with peril, but with Fury leading the charge, humanity has a fighting chance, and the Horsemen have a new, self-determined purpose. From the cosmic machinations of the Charred Council to the desperate struggle for humanity's survival, the Darksiders saga unfolds as a relentless cycle of betrayal, redemption, and the eternal conflict between order and chaos, forever bound by the fates of the four horsemen. And that is the complete Darksiders timeline.